the balloons. It's the Oscars. It's thumbs up.
Well,
You go.
let's say welcome to our annual Oscar chat. This has been going 7 years now. I don't know,
It,
6,
it
7, 8 years. It's going.
been going for quite some time. I mean, like I remember recording in we've definitely been doing it pre-pandemic.
Yes. I think it was like 2018. I want to say, because there's very few people I know in the world who like to nerd out about movies as much as you do, and it makes me so happy. And
It's the
nobody
best.
I know sees more movies than you, and
Thank
so
you.
there's nobody I know that's better to talk to about what the year in movies was, what the state of movies is, the Oscars, the awards.
Yeah.
I always like to start this by talking about, like, I know awards inherently kind of don't matter, and yet I do think that there is quite a bit of impact that, especially for indie films, for smaller projects, that like having eyeballs on it, having a nomination can really make the difference in a film getting seen, but also like those creators and those filmmakers getting green light for their next project. So like, yeah, we can all say, oh, awards, whatever. But I think that's why it's important to actually go see films, and to like, I think it's cool when independent films do get nominated, because it kind of tells people that there's a value here.
And there's
What's your take on awards and
similar? It's like, this is my Super Bowl. People love the Super Bowl. People do this for every single sport. And I guess you could say, like, why does it matter for a lot of like sports things? It's like, does it really matter for movies as opposed to like sports things? Because I know with sports championships, like, it defines the draft order for the next year. So it's like, it helps you like build your team. And especially with a lot of like with college sports, it determines like certain money you get and things like that. So it's like there are tangible reasons why these things like matter to people, as well as just the rings, the jackets, the clout, all those things. But and I think, touching on what you said with movies, it is a great way for a lot of independent pictures, or a lot of things that a lot of new filmmakers. I mean, I think like an interesting stat about this year is that every director nominated for Best Director has never been nominated for director, which is cool. I think like there's films like, have you seen Flow?
Yes, it's great.
Oh my God. It's like, Flow is a perfect example of a movie. It's an animated film from Latvia, nominated for Best International.
Made in Blender, and like,
yes,
done with tools that people have access to, like not a studio feature.
Yes, international feature and animated feature. And it's like the passion project of like one guy and a small team of people. So it's like, and it is, because all these eyes have been on it through the award show, it's like, it is pretty, I think there's a good chance it's a front runner for like winning Best International Feature, versus like a huge DreamWorks movie like The Wild Robot, which I also think is good, but I like Flow a little bit better, and I think it's cool. I think it's really cool that things like that can happen. Does it matter? It's subjective, but also I think if you are a cynical person and you can easily look at movies like, oh, it's just a bunch of rich people patting themselves on the back for making a movie. Congrats, you get to do the hardest thing in the entire world. But also I do think like there was a lot of it's nice to celebrate different performances. It's nice to celebrate different like facets of movies, different departments. I think the fact that they are probably going to be, I think they're introducing a casting Oscar in the next several years. And then it really just feels like that stunt Oscar, and hopefully like a VO Oscar, is just like right around the corner. But yeah, it's also, as someone who just like grew up loving things, it's like, and especially movies, it's like, it's just fun to see all the movie people get together and talk about the movies that are good this year.
That's like always my takeaway is, yes, of course, like, can I even recall who won or was nominated from 5 years ago? Maybe not. But it is like the excitement around what is the best things that got made this year, and tracking them down and seeing them and thinking about them on a kind of a deeper level. I love that. And so like for me, the joy around it, it's similar. Like I have absolutely no skin in the game with the Super Bowl anymore. I used to be like a Cowboys fan. I really don't care about professional football anymore. But it's fun to get together and like watch it. And I kind of feel the same way, where I'm like, there's a few films where I go, if this one's, boy, that's, yeah. But just the
Yeah.
experience of getting together and going like, oh my God, what's nominated? I just went through most of the SAG nominees, and that was a fun thing to go
Hmm.
through and watch all those. And, you know, I just, it is the like joy of coming together. One of the goals I have this year is I really want to go to more film festivals, AKA
Hmm.
a film festival. I've been to some shorts like film festivals, but I've never been to like a proper like debuting new things. And that's been one of my goals. And it kind of feels like Oscar season is kind of like a film festival that you can engage in,
Yes, especially like
independently.
being in SAG and being able to be like, cool, we
Yes.
get some screeners. And like in the few times that I know you have been on the like been selected randomly for the nominated committing it a few times, and like when that you're like, I get everything now.
Yeah.
Several years ago, Lauren got selected for the TV one, and it was like, I don't want to be on the TV one. These are all, and then you're getting like a bunch of DVDs for Netflix shows. I'm like, why do I get all these? I don't need these.
I don't
I
need
don't
this.
need these.
Yeah. That's what the Oscars are for me at the moment until I can scratch that
Totally.
itch a little bit more.
Totally. And like, I feel like I've set a marker for myself where I think this year is the 97th Oscar Awards. And I was like, it'd be cool to be, to plant a flag in the sand and be like, I'll be there on the 100th. I don't know
Yeah.
for what. Maybe I'm just there. Maybe I'm just I know I don't need to be nominated in 3 years, but I'm like,
I'm just
that'd be
there.
cool if I just went in 3 years. Yeah, it's great. And also this
I'm
year
also,
has been, oh, sorry, you go.
oh, no, no, no. I was saying, I'm excited. Apparently, this year's Oscars, they're bringing back the like clips of
Mm-hmm.
actors. I feel like the Oscars are at their best when they're like, aren't movies great? Not when they bring on someone to be like, these Hollywood elites. I'm like, just enjoy, like, make it about movies, because then people who like movies will watch it and enjoy it. So I hope that
Do
there's
you
more
remember
of that.
Do you remember a couple years ago when it was like, I don't remember what year, and it was such a good choice. And I'm like, they should do this every year, where for a lot of the below the line categories, like sound, the clips were like sequences that were like really, they essentially just like isolated the cool sounds and like the
Yeah.
crazy mixes from things. And I was like, this is awesome. You should do this
Yeah.
all the time. Or like little montages of like the costumery, or like showing sketches from costume designers or visual effects, like people in the visual effects room. I don't know. There's just so much cool shit to do. I'm glad Conan's hosting. I think Conan
That's going to be
is
great.
funny, and he's someone who's like got a great sense of humor and will probably make it really fun. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
also,
I'm looking
it's
forward
like
to it.
I know people. There was a kind of not grassroots, but like there was some rumblings of people being like, they should cancel the Oscars. We don't need the Oscars now, with like, the fires and all these things. And semi recently, I think like it was like 2 days ago, the producers of the Oscars came out and were like, yeah, we're never going to cancel it. This employs thousands of people, to do this. And it's just like, yeah, there's always
That's
multiple
a
ways to look at something, but it's
super
like,
valid reason for award shows too, is that I know I have several friends specifically who, like, one of their main, I have a friend who produces the Grammys, and he's a production coordinator. And I have another friend, she does a lot of the set design. I just interviewed yesterday our set designer from Cinderella's Castle, for our little the documentary
Mhm.
making, and he's been busy for the last like several months working on the SAG Awards and working on the Grammys. And it's like, so even these award shows actually employ a lot of
Oh
local
yeah,
artists and creators and florists and caterers. So I'm like, yeah, like,
it's a whole mini
fine.
industry in and of itself.
Yeah,
To just like
exactly.
make this whole season of things happen. But
Yeah.
well, it's a great time. I love movies.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it.
I like that we're back to 10. It's been a
10,
while
baby.
since we back to
10
10.
movies. Did they change it? Where is it still like not necessarily 10 get nominated? It's still like a weighted ballot or
No, I
what? I
think it
think
has to be 10. I
it
think it
has to be
has to
10
be
now.
10.
Okay.
I think there was like a period of time when they introduced more than 5 after that, like maybe 10 years ago ish, when it was like it could be 10, but it doesn't need to be 10. And then they were like,
Right.
it just needs to be, there's just going to be 10, which I think it's a good thing to do.
I agree. Hey, just because like I want to see more films recognized. I will
And I don't,
say it is confusing to me that the 10 nominees and only 5 directors, but then it's like I don't know where you draw the line if it's 10. I
of
don't know. It
course.
gets confusing, but I am like,
Yeah.
there are some specific non-director noms that I'm like, well, who directed those movies?
Uh
So,
huh. I mean, Denis. If we're just
Denny,
being, if we're
yes.
Denny,
Who
and you
they just
go,
the
yeah.
Oscars hate Denny.
Well, it's a lot of people are like, is it going to be his Lord of the Rings? Like when
Yes.
Dune Messiah comes out, and it's like we're going to give it to him for the third one. But then also, like, God, have you read any of those anonymous ballot articles?
I
God,
feel like every year they try to pick the very worst. I,
totally.
I
It's
don't know
total
if I'm like, is
clickbait.
this
Yeah.
really how everybody thinks? I go, they pick the very worst ones with the worst takes and they go, this is what people really think. And I go,
Yes.
that's
And then it
really
throws
though.
everyone's prognostications into a tizzy, and they're like, wait a minute, maybe people are actually, it's like, it seems like no one wants to watch Dune. There was one where someone was like, I don't like Dune because I don't like movies with killing. And it was like, what? It was just like such a like, I don't like movies with killing. It's like, that's like most movies.
That's most movies.
That's most movies. But yeah, and there was just a lot of what Avalie. I don't know what the one about Cynthia Erivo's elf. Oh, is it
Oh,
when she was? They're like she's too
too
old.
old. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, and then that was, I think probably the same one that was like Carla Sofia Gascon was incredible. I'm
Yes.
like,
Incredible.
I don't know. You should say that right now, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
Well,
we'll get into it.
we got 10 nominees this year. I have been, the last 6 weeks has been really chaotic and stressful. And so there's been several movies that I really intended to see that I have not seen yet. Thank God we have Joey here though, because Joey's seen all of them. So I will pass the ball off to Joey to talk about these films. I have a sense of some of them. I'm not sure, I can't speak to them critically. So there are a few films I haven't seen, which I will catch up on.
Sure.
And then the ones that we have seen both together, I'm excited to talk about.
Well, you want to go like back and you want to like start with one you haven't
Sure.
seen, go to another one. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. Or maybe let's start with the one we've both seen. Maybe let's.
Perfect.
You know what?
Let's do it.
Let's start with the low hanging fruit here. What did you think of Wicked? Wicked the musical.
Okay. You saw Wicked before I saw Wicked.
I did. We saw it in Chicago when we were doing VHS. In Chicago.
I saw it like a few days after because I was like, I want to watch it when I get home, and like I think I was like, I want to go to City Walk IMAX and watch this movie big and loud. And I got to be honest, I really liked Wicked.
Same. I did too.
I really liked Wicked. It feels as if the issues that people are having with Wicked are really split between people who have no relationship to the musical and like look at it as like, for whatever reason, a sequel IP to The Wizard of Oz, which are like, it is, but it's not. It's like, this isn't like, what if we made a Lego sequel to the Wicked or to Wizard of Oz? It's like, it's not that. You can't, and it's understandable that so many people in the film industry with the fucking IP deluge of things constantly feel that way. But it really does feel split between people who, if you had a relationship with the show and the musical is something that you love and adore, you're probably going to really like it. And if you didn't and don't, you won't. Which is kind of all I can really chalk it up to. I mean, there's definitely some choices. I think there's some casting choices I don't think work entirely 100%. Not in the main two, I think, or main 4, 5.
Yeah.
Whoever, I think Cynthia Erivo's incredible. I think what she's doing is very different than what you would do for the like a stage production of the show. I think it's a lot more inward. She's doing a lot of stuff that is smaller and then builds over the course of this movie, which will then kind of also, I think, even look better when you watch both movies back to back, that she's doing kind of like a bigger arc. I thought fucking Ariana Grande was like incredible. And she's actually the person that I'm like, I think she should win Best Supporting Actress out of the people nominated right now. I thought Jonathan Bailey was great. What's his name? SpongeBob was great. The actress who played Nessa Rose was great. I thought Jeff Goldblum was fine. I thought Michelle Yeoh was miscast. And I was like, and it's this kind of thing where I'm like, this is not, she's great. She's amazing.
She's extraordinary.
I don't think putting her in a role like this is like helps her. I'm like, this should have been Cheryl Lee Ralph or someone. I'm like, did you see that red carpet interview where Cheryl Lee Ralph at one of the award shows is going to Michelle Yeoh and is like, oh, you get to do this part, and then she starts like saying one of the lines, and you're like, oh my god, she really has it.
She really knows.
Has it. But it's like it's fine. But I thought I enjoyed it a lot.
My biggest takeaway from Wicked is, color palette aside, I just think John Chu knows how to move through a musical. And I think a lot of movie musicals try to obfuscate that it's a musical and be like, don't really,
Mm-hmm.
it's not really musical. There's some songs, but like whatever. Or or they tend to become spectacle, and then you're like, okay, we're stopping and we're doing a music video. And I really think John Chu, I felt this about In the Heights. And I think even Crazy Rich Asians, even though it's not a musical, it's very lush. It's very extreme. It's he knows how to like just move through a story. And my biggest takeaway was he did the thing that I've always wondered, if they ever made Wicked into a movie, could they pull it off, of like really moving the story forward cinematically every
Mm-hmm.
single frame. I mean, even just like The Wizard and I is a great example where, that's a pretty simple song, and she kind of spells out everything she's thinking and feeling. And just the like scope and the like distance that literally Cynthia Erivo covers as she
Mm-hmm.
moves through the space and into the field. And then I just
And
think the
onto
way
that
he
boring cliff. But that's that's
yes, but like I really love, even like there's like a great shot near the beginning where it's, I think, our introduction to Glinda,
Glinda.
as like the camera is underwater, and then we see a
Mm.
hand, and then it
With the
comes
fish.
out of the water,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, this is great. This is taking what is a very not traditional, and Wicked was obviously, really impactful when it came out, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just stand there and sing, and really going, it is every frame is, there's movement, there's color, and I know for some people the choreography maybe didn't work or whatever. For me, it really did. And I just was swept up in, and I think to your point with Cynthia and Ariana, I think Cynthia Erivo, Alphaba is already a little bit more of a reserved character, and I think she played it beautifully in a really cool way. But
Agreed.
I was very surprised by Ariana Grande just taking a pretty broad character on its face and really making it like genuinely funny. That I
She
didn't feel
was
like she was doing a
so
bit.
funny. She
I
was
didn't feel like it
so
was.
funny.
It's a very subtle performance, despite Glinda being a very larger than life character.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just feels like they really went, it is fully a movie, but it's fully a musical. And he like found a way to do this with that in a way
Yeah.
that like La La Land is like,
I mean, that's
it's kind of not, but it
ugh.
is. It's like it married both of those things together, and I don't think it sacrificed either. And
Agreed.
yeah,
Yeah.
it just totally worked for me. And
Yeah.
I came out of it, I was like, that was great. I can't
Yeah.
imagine it being any better. I wish the colors
Totally.
were a little bit more vibrant,
I know. I
whatever.
wish there wasn't. I wish so many scenes weren't backlit like that. It's stuff like that where you're like, I don't know. That I don't really know where the eye comes in from that. And frankly, I think like when I get frustrated is like when people after receiving backlash of things like that try to be like, no, it's like what we wanted to do. It's like, no, it isn't. This somehow didn't get like caught, and you're trying to justify. It's like it's fine. Um, but yeah, it's like those things. Those things are things that, like, yes, while unfortunate, I think don't like distract from the fact that I think it's just a pretty damn good adaptation for something that is like really really fucking tough to do. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just I like the show. I like the show. I hear those songs and I go, oh man, I like that they didn't change any of the orchestrations. That it sound like they didn't try to make things like we're gonna update this and make this funky. It's like no, it pretty much just sounded like the show, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, great movie. I think at the end when we go through them, I get a little tough because there's some you haven't seen some, but I think we should rank them in the way we would
Yeah.
that people would on their ballots. But anyways, okay.
Well, it feels like a perfect segue to the first film I haven't seen. We're talking movie musicals. Let's talk about the
Uh-oh.
other movie musical
Uh-oh.
in the mix. Although I suppose there's a musical biopic, but we'll get to that one. Let's
Yes.
talk about Emilia Perez. I haven't seen it. I I did have there was time for me to see this film. The other
Of
films
course.
more challenging. Nickel Boys, I was trying to see whatever. I never watched it because I just frankly saw enough clips that I just went, I don't want to. Can you tell me if I missed something? Did I miss something? What does Emilia Perez contribute to
Unfortunately, I
this year's
do
Oscars? And
I do think that a lot of the clips that like made their way online when the movie finally hit Netflix actually do distill the weirdness of the movie pretty pretty solidly. Like, I don't think people could watch those clips and stuff and be like, oh, it's like, it's different when you're watching the movie. It's like, nope, it's pretty weird. It's pretty weird and shocking. I saw this movie in Toronto when we were there for Buffer Festival. And so we had like an extra day. And I was like, oh, you know what? I want to go see a movie at TIFF because we're here. The TIFF theater is like in like close-ish to where we were staying for Buffer. And so Brian and I were there early. And I was like, Brian, you want to go see? I was like, they're playing Emilia Pérez. This is going to be an Oscar movie. I don't want to watch it on Netflix. I'd love to like watch it in a theater. It was like right after it had a festival. Everyone was talking about how it was like one of the best movies. I was like, this movie, let's go check it out. And it was like so baffling. First of all, they started playing the wrong movie, which was really funny. They started playing the wrong movie first, and everyone's like, this isn't the movie we're supposed to be watching. So that was weird. But it like, there was a lot of bold decision making and filmmaking choices. Jacques Cotillard, who's the filmmaker who made the movie, is like a very famous French filmmaker. He has like a very impressive resume. It's like I've never watched many of his movies, but it's like he is someone who it's like, oh, he's a
Competent,
guy who
capable.
competent. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's been doing this for years.
This is not made by like people who don't know what they're doing. Like these are great actors and filmmakers getting together to make this for some reason.
Yeah,
that's kind
and
of the sense that I got.
and there were so many moments. Like, honestly, when it started, I was like, oh, okay, this is like very interesting. I feel like I've never seen this. You know, the movie starts with Zoe Saldana singing this song in Spanish, and she's on the street, and there's a lot of like really like crazy camera movement, and there's a lot of it's just a very like alive movie where I was like, ooh, whoa, okay. And you know, all the singing is in Spanish. For the most part, except for clips a lot of people have seen. But so I was like, this is very fascinating. This is very interesting. But it's like, as the movie continued to go on, I was like, I can't recall any of these songs. I had just seen like a couple weeks prior Joker, Folie à Deux, and I was like, this is reminding me a lot of Joker, where there's a lot of like mumble singing that it doesn't really sound like anyone's singing in it's very odd. It's very strange.
Yeah, it's like very, I mean, even the one clip of like them singing about this operation,
it doesn't scan. It's very odd. Well, that is the first song where suddenly people start singing in English, and you're like,
oh, interesting.
This is odd. This is weird. And it's like, it's very strange when people start singing in English suddenly, because also the people who wrote the movie are French. The people who wrote the songs are French. Everything has the French viewpoint of what Mexico is like and the drug cartels in Mexico. And then
the director, like famously on record, was like, I didn't
look
research.
up anything. And you're like, oh my God.
Okay.
But like nothing scans. It feels very much like, this feels like a song that an improv team would make up in like a musical improv show, where they're like, what if I say this? And I am going to say this now. And you're like, stop it. It's driving me nuts. And then like, yeah, I mean, the kind of European look at Mexican culture and distilling it down and kind of trying to boil it all down to like, and this is what the drug cartel situation is like in Mexico. And it's kind of like that thing where shows like Breaking Bad used to like throw a filter, and you're like, when you see the sepia
when
filter,
it's yellow,
that's how you know we're in a Mexico. Okay. And it's like, and it's just very odd. It's a very strange
sepia tone filter.
It's very strange. You know, when I first saw it, I was like, okay, this movie feels like it is trying to be like an opera. So there's a lot of like melodrama. There's a lot of like, everything's very big, but so much of it just like did not sit right with me. The kind of gender essentialism of the movie, of like when Emilia Pérez feels anger, it's like the movie is essentially going, and this is not me saying this, but it's like, that's the manhood coming out and being like, that's her when you know, she was a man, that's when it's bad. And you're like, whoa, 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 you're doing a lot of really crazy shit here and saying
Right.
a lot of things that I'm like, what are we doing here? And listen, there's a lot of people. It's like, I know Zoe Saldana is like a very respected, great actress. She's, I think, pretty good in the movie. She is doing like the most with what she's got there, and it's really cool that she is, I wouldn't say rising above the material. No, I would say rising above the material as opposed to elevating the material.
Right.
There's like some people who you're like, this could be a bad movie and this actor is so good that they can make the whole thing better. I wouldn't say it's that. I would say that it's like, it's someone who just kind of stands out as like, oh no, I can see that you're like a good actor who is,
You're great. You're just in
yeah.
this.
So there's that.
Yeah.
And I think she is really respected. And then like, yeah, you've just seen all these people coming out and talking about how they are so, they think it's the most revolutionary movie and think it's amazing. And I'm like, whoa, what's happening here? My impression is that because this is a movie that deals with issues outside of the United States, and it's an international feature, and it is a movie that, for better or for worse, is a trans story, even if it's not the best way one could tell a trans story. In fact, I think it's kind of harmful. I think a lot of people in Hollywood are probably like, it feels good to like this movie. Like me liking this movie shows that I'm someone who's open to like new ideas and ideas that are like non-traditional. To which I would say there are so many movies this year, genre movies, like new works, kind of like filmmaking debuts. The ones that are on my like top, within my top 20 are like, I saw the TV Glow.
I literally was about to say,
People's
this
Joker,
is what's
like,
infuriating is I saw
yeah,
TV Glow was like right there.
movies that are like
And so people are
totally
like, we got to nominate a film. And it's like, there are plenty of filmmakers from that community
trans
making
filmmakers
some really
making
incredibly stuff,
making stuff that is like, yeah, that is boundary pushing, genre pushing, that is like really sophisticated ways of like assessing an issue and coming at like these things from like a personal place. Representation matters, and the kind of representation does matter. It's not just like, okay, cool, we did it. It's like, no, the who this is and the stories that these people tell does matter, and does matter in terms of like
how you tell it,
how you tell it, and also like how the audience is perceiving it. Like, because you're like, there's so much out there that should have been, but yeah, that could have been awarded, or nominated, and lights could have been shown on. And yeah, it's unfortunate that that's the movie that kind of broke through that mold. So anyways, it's like, it's 100% my least favorite out of the nominees. It's a fascinating watch. I don't think it is like good or successful on most fronts. Emilia Perez.
That's Emilia Perez on Netflix. Let's pivot now to something that I feel it was interesting watching this back in November during the election cycle. There's been a lot of stuff relevant to this particular thing in the last few weeks. This is the papal drama. It's about a papal conclave. It is conclave where the Pope has died and they must elect a new Pope. And a lot of that feels, I saw this in November, maybe like a week or two after the election. So that was very much in my mind. The Pope actually in real life has been sick recently. So this movie
really pressed him.
and the movie itself is about a lot of things, about the kinds of people you choose to put in leadership and why. So there's a lot going on that was just rattling in my brain about like in our real world. And also this movie is like a powerhouse of just like the who's who character actors, just chewing scenery. It's Conclave.
What do you think of Conclave?
Genuinely love this movie. I mean, it just felt to me like it's those kind of movies where you go, there's nothing about it that's particularly flashy or, indulgent, but it's just like a great script and great actors in moody rooms pondering, and it's Ralph Fiennes doing what Ralph Fiennes does, which is like being incredible. Stella Tucci, John Lithgow. There's so many great actors in this movie. I really, I really loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Just it felt like almost watching a great play or something like that, where
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, and
Yeah,
left me chewing on a lot. I really loved Conclave. What did you think?
amazing. I recently rewatched Conclave because, the way it works in my household is I'll probably see most of the movies months before, and I kind of screen most of them to then be like, Lauren, you should watch this one. Lauren, you would like this one. Lauren, this
I
one,
did the exact same for Kim.
it's like, so Conclave was one where I was like, this is an easy watch. They put it on Peacock's semi recently, and I was like, yeah, it's good. I was like a real roll of the dice because I'm like, this is mainly a bunch of men
Sure.
talking in a room, and that is like not what's interesting to you.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, she like really liked it, and I enjoyed it. Watching it the second time, I liked Conclave a lot. To me, it kind of fits that. It's like that perfect mid tier like adult drama that we don't get a lot of, that I
Yeah.
really enjoy. That I wish we had more of. Like Jordan, did you see Jordan number 2?
I did not. No, it
Juror
was
number
one of
2 is another
blind
one of
spots.
those movies where I was like, this movie's like a little shaggy. It's like it's a little, it's a little melodramatic. It's a little bit like, as I've seen described some places, like an airport novel, but a movie.
Hmm.
Of like a kind of there, which I think is good. I think we need more of those movies. But I obviously with Conclave, I thought it was so gorgeous. I thought it was amazing. I thought everyone in it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like on me, but I think like my expectations for Conclave, I like was convinced, and this is spoilery, everyone. This is spoiler territory. Are we spoiling? Is that okay if we spoil?
That's okay. Yeah. If you're
Okay.
going to see it, maybe come back in, I don't know, 2 or
Yes.
3 minutes or whatever.
Jayla Urban, an airport novel. It's like, I would say an airport novel is like something you pick up that is like, ooh, it's like a little campy, like a little trashy, like something that has like ooh, a little intrigue, a little drama, but it isn't
You don't read
one
it
of your.
in, you don't read it in like AP English or
No, no,
something,
no, no. It's like something that you're like, ooh, cool. What if the popes are all gossiping and fighting? Ooh,
Yeah.
or the bishops or whoever. But I was like dead. I was convinced, spoiler territory, that this movie would have like an Agatha Christie murder angle.
Mm.
Like for some reason, and this is on me, like I was just like, they are setting this up in a way that makes it seem we're closing the doors. Everyone's locked in here. And I'm like, something's gonna happen. And then nothing like did in a big way. I thought the like twist was actually very fascinating, very interesting. I thought like how the movie like how it commented on faith and like people's like how different people interpret faith is like very good. I think like again when we saw it, it was, or when it came out, is when I first saw it, was like very close to the election, and I was a little bit like, oh my god, this movie is like right. It's like for some reason a little bit of the some of the currentness of it bugged me a little bit, where I was like, we got the one guy who's like, we're trying to take the church back, and some guy's like, I'm here for progress, and you're like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
this is the world. But I did really like it. I did really like it. I think it
I
like
really, I think I especially, it was a movie that walking out of it, I guess I almost wasn't thinking like, oh, Oscar nominee for sure. I just kind of
sure.
walked out of it thinking like, wow, like you said, we don't get a lot of these kind of movies.
Mm-hmm.
It trusts that it doesn't need to be sensational. It lets sort of the
Mm-hmm.
inherent drama of these people's lives be enough. I really connected and resonated with Ray Fiennes'
Totally.
character, who's this guy trying to like having a crisis of faith, just trying to like do his duty despite that. Um,
Totally.
a lot of people pitched it as like the bitchy like Pope movie, like the bitchy like Cardinal movie, and
Yeah.
I didn't really get that from it. I didn't find it was like ooh, and it's like because I kind of went into it thinking like, is it going to be like Doubt or something, where it's like, oh my
Sure.
god, some and there definitely is like some people have
Yeah.
acted erroneously, but it's really just like we gotta like how do you choose a leader who can satisfy
Yeah.
like, and that's an interesting
It was
it's
a
an
really
interesting
it was
exercise.
a politics movie about religion, which you're like, that's
Yes.
interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. That's interesting where it's like, this could be about a fucking senator, this could be about a
Mm.
president, this could be about anything, but
It's very
it's
like
all
12
these
Angry
people.
Men, but it's
Yeah,
Catholic.
exactly. Yeah, I really like Conclave. I think Conclave, and it's like the kind of mid-tier movie that I'm describing it as, I think it's very good. I'm like, that is good. There needs to be movies like this. You know, this is, and I frankly watched it. And I was like, this is a total fucking Oscar movie from like the mid '90s. You know,
Yes.
it's like this. It's like
Yes.
if we were in the mid '90s, this movie would sweep everything, which was fine. You know, it's like that's cool. Yeah, I like Conclave. I
Yeah.
think Conclave is pretty good.
Moving on to another film that I haven't seen.
Okay.
This is, let me see, which one do I want to pick? Okay. Let's keep it in the let's touch all the musical movies. This is a biopic starring Timothée Chalamet. This is a
Timothée.
complete unknown. The Bob
Okay.
Dylan biopic. Monica Barbaro, I believe, is also nominated. Edward Norton nominated for Best Supporting
Mm-hmm.
Actor. I've heard
James
great things
Mangold
about this.
nominated for directing.
I I did not see this for any specific reason. I've always really not liked musical biopics. And I know that this, from what I've heard, it's not necessarily like, it's not, Bohemian Rhapsody, but I've always
No,
kind of just ever, in a
no.
post Walk Hard world, like it's, it's just
Yes,
kind of hard to not see
100%.
the seams. What do you think of A Complete Unknown? That being said, I really am like falling for Timothy Chalamet. I think he's an incredible actor, and I like can't hate on the guy at all. Everything he's in,
Sure,
I'm always like, it's great. How
he's
is he
great.
in this movie?
Um,
How's the movie?
he's the movie. Just to touch on what Jayla said I never listened to a Bob Dylan, so I don't know if I would like it. I am also not a Bob Dylan person. I
Same.
like have virtually no musical relationship to Bob Dylan. I went and saw this movie with Dylan Saunders, who is a huge Bob Dylan person. He's like Bob Dylan is like formative person in my life. He's like it's partially my namesake. And it's like and you're like, whoa, that's wow. So it was interesting seeing it with someone who has such a connection to Bob Dylan because the movie itself is a very specific portion of Bob Dylan's career and life. It is not like a cradle to grave biopic, which that terminology is like from them being born to them dying, their entire life and career. Ray, I think not Walk Hard, Walk the Line is like it's like starts when he's a kid. And
Yes.
like,
The
not
wrong
what
kid
kind of
died.
Bohemian Rhapsody, wrong kid dad. God, that's funny. Uh, but I think Bohemian Rhapsody starts when he's like a lot younger and obviously
Yeah.
goes like through most of his career. This is like about a very specific period when he goes to New York and he is like becomes big as a folk singer and then like switches over to electric in like the second phase of his career into electric guitar. And it's kind of the push and pull between him and the folk music community who kind of saw him as you're the guy who's going to make folk mainstream and allow like us and folk music to become like mainstream and something that can keep going because we're kind of a niche genre. And the idea that like him going electric was almost seen as like a betrayal to the folk
Mm,
community, and like it's a lot of it touches on like just him doing it. But I think the thing about Bob Dylan is it doesn't really touch on who Bob Dylan is as like a guy. There is so much about like the enigma of Bob Dylan, and like you don't really see where he comes from. He just kind of like shows up one day in this hospital with Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie, famous folk singers who Pete Seeger becomes like his mentor, and he just shows up to be like, I just want to pay my respects to Woody Guthrie, and and then like so much of his past is mysterious, and like kind of why he chooses to to go electric anyways is also very unexplored in the movie. But I think it's very
right.
indicative of who Bob Dylan is as a person. Dylan's at least immediate perspective seemed to be like, I wish this movie did more. I wish there like I have so many expectations of all the different phases of Bob Dylan's career that I would like to see. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. I have no expectation of any of that. So I'm just kind of like, oh, cool. This is a
Right.
cool slice of his career, which also makes sense because you're like, I don't want to see Timothée in old makeup. I don't need that. But yeah, I thought it was quite good. It just is fascinating because the movie builds to this music festival where he first starts playing music from his new album that is electric guitar. And it's a folk music festival. And it's funny because these movies kind of like build to like the way Bohemian Rhapsody builds to Live Aid. And you're like, oh my God, this is the concert. And it's funny because the climax of A Complete Unknown is an event that everyone hated when he was doing it. So it's
Mm,
people booing, it's people like throwing stuff on stage. And you're like, interesting. This is like
interesting.
in another movie, this would be like the first act
Right.
climax. You know, it's like this would kind of like take us into the second act or something. But it's like,
Right. He hits a low point before he turns it. It's like,
yeah.
actually, that's the end. Interesting.
And we're
And
not
that's
really
interesting coming from James Mangold, who made Walk the Line.
totally.
Who kind of has, that's kind of why I went into being like, oh, is it like Walk the Line, but Dylan? And it's interesting hearing you say it's very kind of doesn't follow that same trajectory.
Totally. Yeah, it's great. And he's great. He's fucking great. You know, he's
starring in 2 of the nominated films. That's
he's
crazy,
fantastic.
Man.
He's fantastic. I mean, like I saw trailers for that movie. And I'm like, oh my God, is this going to be like an SNL caricature? And it's like, he pulls it off. He's great. He sounds great. Yeah, he's great. It is kind of like standard music biopic. Like it's a movie that I'm like, this is for the parents, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. But actually found it to be quite enjoyable. I liked it. And
yeah, I definitely, I'm going to see it. And like I said, I consistently have never been disappointed by Timothée Chalamet. Like,
yeah,
every time I see him in a movie, I'm like, this guy's great. I was reading a stat too, that he is, I think, I don't know the numbers, the percentages, but like in terms of his work with directors and specifically Oscar nominated films and like the last 7 to 8 years is like absolutely insane. Like I know like for a while everybody was saying like, oh, Adam Driver is the one. It's like, if you look at his resume, it's just ridiculous. But like Timothée Chalamet is consistently in movies that get nominated for Best Picture, which is
and they all come
wild.
out around the holidays. He's like a holiday movie guy who it's like big box office.
And you go, what movie has he been in that you go, that's terrible? You go, none. I can't think of a single movie where you're like, boy, he signed up for that one.
I didn't like Wonka. I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what? I didn't see Wonka, so
really
maybe
like
that's
Wonka.
the one.
I don't care who says it. I think Wonka's pretty bad. But anyways,
I did not see Wonka, so there we go.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's like really good. We can touch on other stuff later, but it's like in terms of the best actor race, I'm like, I don't think you should beat Adrian Brody, but that's a movie we'll get to in a bit. In a bit. But anywho,
that's a complete unknown.
That's complete unknown.
It's for the parents. It's for the Dylan heads.
Parents is for Dylan heads, but it's also not. It's also just like, you want to see some people in the 60s singing folk music and like kind of smoking a lot. It's kind of fun. And it's like funny. It's good. It's like, it's a very traditional, fine movie. I'm like, there's nothing that I like hated about it. And there's nothing that I'm like, oh my God, that was the best movie. But I think going in with low expectations and honestly not having a relationship to Dylan made my experience better.
Did you ever see the 2007 film I'm Not There, the Todd Haynes movie?
Yes. See, that's another movie where I'm like, I feel like really touches on the like, who is Bob Dylan? What is Bob Dylan's personality? What's his identity? Which I think is like cool that
I
you
thought
can
that was
make
an
both.
interesting film because it did this thing where it cast all these different actors, Heath Ledger, Christian Bale, Cate Blanchett, to kind of embody different aspects of Dylan's persona and whatever. And it's a really interesting movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about the extent that I know of Dylan. And so, yeah, I'm also somebody who's just not, it's not a music style I necessarily vibe with, but I'm going to check it out. You've sold.
Awesome.
Let's pivot right from that into the other. He's not nominated for Best Actor for it, but the other Timothée Chalamet movie.
Oh man.
Dune Part 2.
Man, what a movie.
Man,
what a movie.
There are few films that I can recall realizing that my mouth was genuinely agape. Like, genuinely, there was a moment sometime around the sandworm riding scene where I literally was like, oh, I need to, like, I was so overwhelmed by, we can get into the specifics of the movie, but I just think Denis Villeneuve knows how, Villeneuve, whatever. Villeneuve.
Sorry, French.
Can do scope and scale in a way that he connects you so deeply to the characters that when it gets huge and large, I feel swept up in it in a way that I watch a lot of blockbusters and I'm like, yeah, wow, things are blowing up and, but for some reason, I don't know if it's how he shoots it or what, but the movie is just completely immersive. I feel like there's shots in this film that are truly, when I think of sci-fi, I'm like,
Mhm.
this is what I'm craving, where it feels otherworldly. There's a sequence at the beginning of the movie where these like soldier characters just float up a cliff, and I was like, I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen there's a black and white planet. Like there's just imagery from this film that left me gobsmacked. And it's doing stuff in terms of like sci-fi Star Warsy kind of storytelling that I'm like totally vibing with. It feels like it's filled the hole of what used to be Star Wars in my sort of imagination.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I love this movie. I think I saw it like 3 or 4 times in theaters.
Yeah.
I own the 4K UHD Blu-ray. I got
Same,
nothing but good
baby.
things to say. What did you think about
Yeah.
Dune Part
I think
Two?
it's kind of what you were saying. I think it's the closest thing we have to like, and we'll see how Messiah goes. You know, we'll see how I've never read the books and I don't know, but apparently it gets pretty weird and pretty nuts. So, but if anyone's going to kind of make that work, I feel like it's Denis. But it's the closest thing we probably have to like the next big Star Wars esque trilogy or Lord of the Rings or something that feels like, holy shit, what an achievement, and like a true ensemble piece that is putting the best of the best people in it and really making it work. It's funny, I just recently rewatched the David Lynch Dune.
Mm.
In just like a kind of going through and watching a bunch of David Lynch movies, and I was like, oh yeah, I gotta rewatch this movie. And man, oh man, it's funny because that's a movie that apparently David Lynch was originally offered to direct Return of the Jedi, turned it down, and like Dune was a, the next kind of thing. It was like, let's do another. It was around the same time Star Wars was kind of like in its peak. And it's funny having, I know it's like uh a much maligned movie over the course of history, but I think the fact that now we have a very good Dune series that we can like point to, it adds a lot of charm to the old one, and you're kind of like, oh, this is fun because I can see a lot of stuff he was doing that was really good. I could see a lot of good choices. There is an overwhelming amount of voiceover in this movie that feels like it's stitching together stuff that didn't make sense. It's also
Yeah,
insane that he basically takes both Dune Part 1 and Part 2 and crams them into one
shoves them
movie. I'm like,
together.
oh my God, why would we ever try to make these one movie? And yeah, I fucking love Dune. I don't know if I think like the first Dune is so amazing. Like I'm like that movie blew my fucking mind, and I'm like there's a lot of like story stuff that I feel a little bit more connected to. It's like, the difference between a 5 star and a 4.5 star movie for me in terms of like, and maybe honestly I'll probably rewatch Dune 2 and be like, nah, it's probably a 5 star movie. But it's like you said, there is the way he threads together kind of the journey of the movie, the way he makes time pass, the way he like builds up the stakes and introduces characters that weren't a part of the first movie or just hinted at in a cologne commercial at the end of the first movie, like Zendaya. And then like it's just, I mean, Zendaya also is just like, she's fucking it. She just has
She's
it.
so
She
good. She's
fucking
so
has
good.
it. She's the best. Um,
Javier
Javier
Bardem is so
Bardem
good in
is
it.
so
Rebecca
amazing.
Ferguson.
It's so good. It's just like, yeah, like you said, there's some stuff that the first when he fucking rides Shai Halud, man, oh man, is that the craziest thing? It's like that's a real like my whole body is vibrating right now. But yeah,
And I think
um,
that, there was a real valid criticism that I can see in hindsight of people being like, Dune Part One is not a movie.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
It's a first thought. And I'm like, that's fine. But for me, I know he's making this as a, like, I know there wasn't
Uh
necessarily
huh.
Dune Part Two guarantee when he did the first one, but it to me just takes what they started in one and just, it doesn't just make it bigger. It amplifies the stakes. I'm like deeply invested in it in a way that a lot of sci-fi, a lot of sci-fi just in general and fantasy tends to kind of make my brain turn off because I'm like, this is
Yeah.
all, he like makes, I really believe that this world is just there and it's so imagined and fleshed out, and it's, I don't
Yeah.
know. I just,
Star Kid Mason, I know you're like unpopular opinion. I thought Dune Part 1 was boring. I love Part 2. I would challenge you to watch the uh uh, David Lynch Dune and realize like how much of the actual story and the setup is getting to Part 2, and like
right.
you actually need part two to be a whole separate movie. It's kind of like one thing can't happen without the other. You can't make it two movies. It's the most logical place to stop. I also think it's nice because it is the almost like unlocking of Paul. It's like
Mm.
you have the first movie is like a guy, a prince who essentially like the movie ends with him fully committing to like leaving his shit behind and being like, I'm in the desert now. I'm one of the Fremen. I'm like committing to this. And then two is a totally separate arc. It's the arc of like, I am becoming Lisan al Gaib. I am like, it's all going to my head. It's like the God complex of it all. It's like the poisoning and the bastardizing of like, of this, journey. I think like, I think both work so well. I also just like that fucking Oscar Isaac. I love Oscar Isaac. I think he's
Dude,
great.
Oscar Isaac is so good.
He's so good in the first one.
All that stuff at the end of it's also too, I love, this is why I don't understand. All respect if you did not find it super entertaining, super valid. But man,
Of course,
the whole sequence when they,
the Harkonnen.
well, yes, and like something very bad happens to Oscar Isaac, and that whole
Oh my
sequence,
god, it's
and like
fucking sick.
the soldiers showing up, and like then Josh Brolin, it's to
great.
me, it's such a crescendo. And then there is this little kind of epilogue on the end of it that sort of launches us into the second part. But I don't know.
It's pretty good.
It's why
pretty
it makes me so excited for part 3, and also just like using the
I might
IMAX
rewatch them this weekend.
to its ultimate thing.
Oh,
You know, Austin Butler's great in this movie.
He's
it's just
fantastic
great,
in this movie.
Oh,
Oh man, I might rewatch them this weekend. Maybe I will.
Man, on that 4K UHD Blu-ray, on like a 4K TV. Oh, it is so beautiful. It's so nice.
Okay, that's good to know.
Let's do part 2. It's real
Dune
good.
part 2. Great.
Let's pivot now to, this is a film that I know almost nothing about, except that some of my favorite film podcasts have spoken about it very highly. It's called I'm Still Here. I've heard that it has a lot of resonance for sort of modern day application in terms of things that are happening in our world. I just don't know much about this film. I know that it's about sort of somebody's dealing with oppression.
Yes.
Can you talk about I'm Still Here? And I've heard nothing but good things. I just have not seen it yet. And
without spoiling anything, it's about a period in the 70s in Brazil when fascism had kind of taken over the country, and about a family in Rio de Janeiro whose husband is kind of engaging in a series of like revolutionary underground acts unbeknownst to the wife, Fernanda Torres's character, and is like one day snatched up by the government. And it's just kind of like about the fallout of that family dealing with that. I really liked this movie. I thought Fernanda Torres was so good.
Everybody is, that's the main, I don't know much about the movie, but everyone is like, you have to see it. She's extraordinary. And
she's fantastic. There is like the performance she's giving. I mean, especially compared to all the other Best Actress performances, nominated performances, she is giving something so internalized, so like held back, that as opposed to, obviously The Substance and Anora, which are movies that I fucking love, that are like, they're big, loud performances. There's a lot going on in those performances. Right. And she is giving something so reserved, something that the kind of her through line of the movie is being like, I need to hold this together as in the midst of something like unfathomably devastating happened, and kind of the slow dismantling of like what that means for like your family, your life, and like how the movie like has a really big shift at one point where suddenly the movie just changes, and it's like a really shocking depiction of like how something like that can just happen and your whole life is just totally different. It's like a very good, and yes, Val 3N3. I did know that was Fernanda Torres' mother, which is very cool, who was like last nominated for a movie maybe like 15-20 years ago, which is very cool. It's quite good. It's quite good. This is the movie that I really hope beats Emilia Pérez in Best International Feature. I really hope that not to wish for any movie's downfall or anything, but that the bad press around Emilia Pérez, that happened around the time of voting allows space for this movie to kind of like come and succeed, because it's a very beautiful, devastating movie that I think is like, yeah, it's just like not every movie is Dune. Not every movie's Amelia Perez. This is a very like quietly devastating movie, which I think is really fucking. It's cool that it is like broken through so in such a big way, and yeah, it's good. It's like so worth watching. But yeah, it's gonna bum you out. It's gonna bum you
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
It's
that's
gonna bum
kind
you
of
out.
it is not a it's not a light watch, but one
Certainly isn't.
worth engaging in.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to check it out. I haven't a chance to see it yet,
Oh
but I'm
yeah.
excited to see it.
Yeah. It's quite good.
Um, let's pivot to what I think is the most surprising Best Picture nominee of the year. I loved it when I saw it. Did not expect it to get an Oscar nom. Feels like a weird little thing that a bunch of horror film people would love, but
Oh
not a
yeah.
traditional Oscar pick.
Oh
So I
yeah.
was kind of delighted to see The Substance
Oh yeah.
not just be nominated, but get nominations for Best Director,
So cool.
Best Actress, and Demi
Screenplay.
Moore, just screenplay. This movie is absolutely bonkers.
Oh yeah. Have you
I
seen her other movie, Revenge?
Revenge. It's
Yeah.
great.
It's
And I
awesome.
think
It's
I
awesome.
actually, this was a movie I've been trying to pitch Kim to watch. And she's like, I don't like body horror. And I was like, I
Dude,
know,
I'm right there with you.
and we watched it. We watched it 2 nights
Eh, eh,
ago and
okay.
Kim loved it. Kim loved it.
Okay.
It was like, yeah, it's disgusting. But what I love about this movie, and Coralie Farge, I believe is how you say her name, a lot of
Mhm.
French people in this year's Oscars. It is a movie that sort of trusts, it has like full confidence in the image that it's putting out there. There's not a ton of dialogue. It's
Mhm.
pure style.
Kind of
It's
reads like a
funny.
comic book. It feels like a
It's
graphic
like,
novel at
yes,
times. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's complete maximalist filmmaking. It's over
Yeah.
the top. It's wild. And yet it still has some really lovely and heartbreaking moments of just
Oh
like
yeah.
real devastation. It's pretty on the nose about what it's saying, but it's doing it at such
Who cares?
at a crazy,
You know?
like full octane level.
I
I
think it
love
Oh,
seeing her
sorry.
be nominated for this. It just doesn't
Oh
feel like a
yeah.
film they would nominate. And it's Mubi, which I'm a big fan of Mubi, the platform, and it's like one of their
And
first big films.
it was supposed to be a Universal movie, and then Universal was like, we
Mm,
don't want to release this. And you're like, fuck you guys. You
yeah.
guys made a bad call. Yeah.
And this is a kind of film I love if somebody is up for it. I love showing to somebody where you just are like, I just want to watch you react to
Totally.
this.
Totally.
I found it, yes, it's a film about specifically, an aging starlet sort of dealing with ageism and the misogyny of that. And yet I also found it extremely relatable, just being like,
Oh
wow,
yeah.
I feel this in my soul, that, that hyper specificity, creating universal truth. Right. I love The Substance. I've seen it like 4 or 5 times at this point. It's
Really?
just pure. I saw it twice in theaters. And then
Oh
we
man.
did a Patreon watch party, and then so it's 4 times. So then I watch it with Kim. So I love this movie. What do you think of The Substance?
Oh man, I love it. I need to see it again. I'm having the same thing with Lauren where I'm like, I know you would love this movie. You just have to, it's like, how do we get around the like needles and like all the and so much like what were we watching? We watch A Different Man. I watched with her, but there's like moments in that movie where it's like there's skin stuff and she's like going, oh, and I'm like, this is 1/16 of the stuff that's in The Substance, babe. But I loved it. I think it was maybe
20
15
minutes too
minutes
long?
too long.
Yeah,
Maybe
15,
15
20
minutes too
minutes too
long.
long?
And that's not to say I don't appreciate and like and enjoyed what they did in those final 15, 20 minutes. I think
Yeah.
it's like, I go, this is the most balls to the wall fucking crazy shit I've ever seen. It's like watching a fucking Sam Raimi movie. This is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I think like you said, it is very obvious. There's a lot of like obvious symbolism in the movie. The movie is very broad. The movie is like talks in ways where it's like, are you hosting the New Year's Eve show? And you're like, what is that? What is this? Like everything feels like we're watching it's almost like a Black Mirror episode of like, what
Yes.
is the New Year's Eve show? What is this thing that it's like,
nothing is really based in, like, you're like, it's vaguely Los Angeles, it's vaguely Hollywood. Everything is its most sort of
yes.
simplified.
There's like a scene in the beginning where it's showing the Hollywood star on the Walk of Fame and there's snow, and you're like, what do you mean there's snow?
Yeah.
But it's like that, who cares? Yeah, like I enjoy.
What is Sue's workout show?
What is
I
the
don't
show?
quite know.
Why does she? Yeah, it's like, but I go,
Pump it
who
up with
cares?
Sue.
But so many movies are equally as obvious in their like symbolism and in their themes, and often as broad in their like descriptions of things and their world building, but like try to make it seem like they're fooling people into being like, yeah, but it's like, no, this is obvious and dumb. Whereas this movie, I'm like, oh, this movie wears that proudly as like
Yes.
as part of its, as part of
It
the
doesn't
genre,
try to
as
like
part of the,
obscure
no,
that. It goes, that's, yeah, she's a star. You know what that, you get it. And I like,
yeah,
oh, great. Now we can
yeah,
play.
yeah, yeah. It's
And like,
so fun.
even the
It's
sci-fi
so
of it
fun.
is sort of nonsensical. Like, it doesn't try to be
You're like,
like,
okay,
here's how this would work. You go,
no,
you gotta make make a young
no,
version of yourself, whatever.
you don't have a scene where she's talking to someone and they're like, so we invented the substance back in 1985 and and this thing went wrong, and you're like, who cares, who gives a shit? I felt it's very similar, not similar, but it's like there are similar aspects of like the efficiency in storytelling in the way like there is in Challengers for me, where like
Mhm.
Challengers doesn't have any scenes where like Zendaya's sitting with her mom being like, so what do you think? Like, I just wish art would do this. You're like, nope, it's just these three people and it's all the important scenes and it's just moving forward. And
We're doing
I
it.
kind of like that this was the same thing. And it's funny and it's weird and it's cool watching Demi Moore just like get to go fucking buck wild on something
Yeah.
like this. It's like
Yeah.
it's really fun. It's gross and I love it.
It's
Good for
great.
them.
And
They
again,
did it.
surprising to me to see it be recognized, because it just feels like a movie. I was like, I like it.
Oh yeah.
It's like a great midnight crowd movie, but to
Oh
have
yeah.
it, this is why I think we talked about why Oscars matter. I'm like, how cool is that? That a movie like
So
this
cool.
and her as a director gets out there.
Yes.
So man,
It's
this
like
is one of my favorite picks of the year.
it's a pretty widespread this year in terms of like
Yeah.
you have two international films. One of them is a musical and it's not good. One is like a very like prescient almost like family drama period piece. One, you have a French gonzo fucking body horror. You have like you have a big sci-fi epic. It's like cool that there's so many facets of like the movies nominated this year.
So we got 3 more movies.
Yeah. Wait, yeah.
We've both seen, one I haven't. So we'll try the one that
Okay.
I haven't seen again.
Okay.
And then we'll maybe launch into the last 2.
Okay.
Heard nothing but good things about this.
Yes.
I tried to see it today. The screening I was going to go to wasn't available. Then I tried to go see it at 4. It was sold out. Heard nothing but great things. This is a historical film shot in first person point of view. It's called Nickel Boys. It is I think my understanding is it's about like
a reform school. But
yes,
it's like a reform school that they live in, that they're also heavily abused. Yeah.
Set in like the Jim Crow era 60s. So like
yes.
that is the backdrop. And it is not just sort of a lighthearted tale of going to school. It is about these 2 boys who are dealing with a lot. I haven't seen it. I've heard truly nothing but good things. David Ehrlich, it's like his favorite film of the year. And he has raved about it and said it's the best thing of every movie by far. I don't always see eye to eye with David Ehrlich, but he speaks very hyperbolically about it.
Sure
I'm excited to see it. What do you think of Nickel Boys?
I liked Nickel Boys. I thought the POV worked really well. I think
it doesn't feel like a gimmick. It really immerses you.
No. It's like it.
That's great.
It's tough because the screening I saw was very hot. It was there was no AC, and I was like, oh my god, it's so hot in here. So it's like I don't think I've been meaning to see this movie again, because I was like, I think I need to see this with like an other just see it again. I did really like this movie. I thought Anjanu Ellis Taylor was incredibly good. I think I thought there was a lot of like a supporting cast of people who are like fill out the other boys at this school. There is like one scene in particular because the movie switches time too. The movie like jumps forward in time to kind of get the perspective of one of the boys who graduated from this school years later, kind of like trying to investigate what happened and get more information, connect with people from there, because like they're starting to discover a bunch of unmarked graves at the school when he's like an adult.
This is based off of very
True,
real
like
events
yes,
and historical things. Yeah.
yes. I thought this movie was like incredibly beautifully rendered. I thought like the story was so powerful, and there are some sequences that I'm like, whoa, that was like a knockout sequence. The one of the main boys in the movie, just I could not connect with him as like an actor. And it was tough because the movie is like one actor, one of the boys' perspectives, and then at some point in the movie it like shifts, and then you start to go between them. And so it's hard because there was like one boy who in my experience watching, I was like, this kid's got iPhone face. This kid feels way too contemporary in what was in what he was doing. So it's tough because I was like, in a movie that is supposed to like fully envelop you in the experience of two people, I really connected with one of them and not the other. And that was like just that, like it put me on the outside of the movie in a way that
Right.
I don't know. It's like I've been kind of like reckoning with, where everyone's like, "This is
Yeah.
like the best movie of the year." I'm like, "Yeah." I thought it was very good. I thought it was
And from
very,
what I
very good.
understand, the vibe or the tone seems to be deeply kind of meditative and very like
Yeah,
it's not like an exciting, like when you
it's
think
got
of
like
first
very
person point of view, it's not hardcore Henry or something,
no. The
right?
director Ramel Ross has like in interviews, he's like cited Tree of Life as like the
Mm,
Terrence Malick movie as like a huge influence on the movie.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
Which is very like
feel.
Terrence Malick stuff is very meditative and reflective and
Mhm.
in nature and sort of
Yeah, I'm like fully
visceral
owning.
and tactile.
I'm fully owning that my experience watching it, maybe for whatever reason, and it's funny because I feel like a lot of people are like, yeah, the POV is very isolating. I'm like, I didn't think so. I think the POV was actually pretty great and utilized quite well. There was just something about I just had trouble breaking through with like one key element of it, and so it
Sure.
kind of like it yeah, I don't know, not
And
yeah,
that's what's
you
fascinating about
know.
watching movies. Like I've had experiences like that where I'll watch a film, be enamored with it, I'll revisit it and I'll go, wow, this is not working. Or vice versa. I might feel a little disconnected, go back to it
Hmm.
with new perspective, and all of a sudden there's
Totally.
something there.
And
So
I'm like
um
so on the outside with this. That's the thing. I go
yeah.
more and more. I'm like, Joe Stribling and I went and saw a screening of this, and we both kind of left it being like, that was pretty good. And it's funny because afterwards we were like, it's like reading about it. It's like everyone is like, this is the best movie ever, and I was like, oh, yeah. So for whatever reason, um, I think I need to revisit it. I think I need to, but I enjoyed it. I think like the movie is successful. I think the movie is like very successful in what it's achieving and what it does and its form. I had a blockage with one of the main performers, and I was like, oh yeah, I just it made it harder for me to be like, oh my god,
Yeah.
this is the most powerful thing in the world, and I know I'm on the outside.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to check it out and
You
just
gotta
sort
check
of
it out. You gotta
hearing
check it
all
out.
this sort of the conversations around it and
Yeah, of
obviously, but then trying to go in with kind of an open mind and not put
course.
too
And I'm
much
sorry, I don't
notes
want
in
to.
your
I don't,
expectations.
it's like
No,
I
because
am. I like
I've heard both. I've heard it's the most profound thing I've ever seen. I've also heard people say I was kind of on the outside looking in, and so kind of an
interesting.
interesting perspective to go see a film of like, okay, it's really working for some, not
Yeah,
as resonant for others. So yeah, well,
yeah,
I'm excited to check it out.
yeah. It's
We got
cool.
two films left.
Here we go.
Incidentally, two of my favorite movies of the year, so I'm
Oh
excited to
yeah,
talk about them. I don't know what order to go in. I guess we'll start with the more lighthearted of the ones, I
Sure.
suppose. Let's start with Sean Baker's newest film, that is Anora. Full confession, Sean Baker is maybe my favorite director. One of
Ooh.
I am such a fan of Sean Baker's work. He's the only director, aside from his first feature, which I couldn't find, that I own literally every single one of his films in physical media form.
Really?
Um, I love Tangerine. I love The Florida Project. I love Red Rocket.
Red Rocket.
I
Yeah.
I love. Here's what I love about Sean Baker, and I think Anora takes this to sort of elevates the form of what he's been working on for a long time, which is I always feel like Sean Baker focuses his story on people that you would normally sort of look the other way. He kind
Mm-hmm.
of takes people that you would normally pass on the street and think there's nothing interesting or special here, and he goes, no, that's who I want to focus in on. And he examines their lives, and he digs deep into their lives in a way that always, to me, I know there's plenty of people who don't feel this way about Honora or his films, but I've never felt them to be exploitive. I've always felt them to be an incredibly empathetic look at, like, what is this world that I don't understand.
Yeah.
um I love this movie. I think Mikey Madison's phenomenal in it.
Yeah.
I was surprised at how funny this movie is. It goes to some places emotionally that are really painful, but it's also very funny to sort of be on this journey with these people.
Oh yeah.
I just was delighted by it. I loved it. I've seen it, I think, 3 times at this point. And I'm such a big Sean Baker fan. I just love the way he looks at the world. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of biased, but what did you think about Honora?
I loved Anora. Similarly to the substance, I think Anora is maybe 15 minutes too long. There's
Sure.
like
Yeah.
that last final section. I'm like, ooh, it feels like we just and you know, it's kind of the point. It's kind of the point of the movie. So as opposed to the substance, which just keeps like stretching out this like premise and being like, we're taking this premise as long and far as you think, and then going even further. I think Anora has like a very clear falling act, like a very long falling action at the end of the movie. You know, the movie climax is not as close to the end of the movie as like I think I was expecting. And so you have this like really slow kind of deflating of the movie as like this dream and this all this fucking hype of her life and the energy and all these things that were kind of like fueling this movie, and there were the gas in the tank of like this entire story slowly leave the movie and slowly watch it all. Like it's kind of like the movie has a hangover. You
Mm,
know, the movie
yeah.
has like a hangover of all the razzmatazz of the first 2 hours. And I think it's like, even if I was like, oh God, can we wrap this up a little bit? I also think some of that is motivated by the fact that I saw this movie and watched this movie with Lauren, who is famously someone who doesn't like long movies and checks out at a certain point and goes like, "Oh my God, can we get it done?" But I think like this movie very successfully utilizes that time that it kind of
Yeah.
fizzles out at the end, and I think it's like very effective for what the point of the story is. Of like, you know, all of his movies are also, in addition to kind of having a focus on these on maybe kind of like unsung, not heroes, but just people in on the fringes of kind of like, it's like people on the fringes of the American dream. You know,
Yes.
people Florida Project is these people living just outside of Disneyland, you know, or Disney World. It's like, and
Or
this
even
kind
like
of
Tangerine is like
living in
just off the sort of
yes.
Hollywood. It's in the background. It's these. Florida Project was the first time I saw of his, and it's so
Totally.
fascinating because you're like, oh, I drive by that laundromat. Oh, I
Yeah.
drive by that donut shop. I'm always going somewhere else though, and
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
but people, this is their whole world. I
Yes.
love that. It's always like, I
And
think you put that so beautifully. Just outside of like this,
yes.
I could make it. My life could be changed
And Red
forever.
Rocket is like, I'm going to go home. I'm going to build myself back up. And then we're going to go back to Hollywood and back into hit the porn industry again. And you're like, oh, God. It's like, and you know, this one I think is has the most like of a traditional build that is like, you know, a lot of people have been comparing it to like Pretty Woman or something like that. But it's like, you know, but the rug getting pulled out from everyone in like a frankly more realistic, not Hollywood way, which I
Yes.
think is like, I thought she was phenomenal. I thought that middle act where it becomes like a fucking slapstick goof around of the three guys trying to run around town. I'm like, this is like one of the funniest things I've seen in a movie all year. Like
I also
it was genuinely
appreciated
hilarious.
watching it with Kim. She was very, you know, and as a woman herself, I think she's very reactive to, oh my God, is this just going to be about like these men abusing this woman? And I think the movie does a really nice job of threading the needle
Mhm.
of putting you through hell with her, but never being like, but like she's not in control, but she always has her agency. And she's
Uh-huh.
always like, you like, I can recommend this movie and being like, you can watch it and not feel like you're going to see something horrible
Mm-mm.
that you're like, why did you make me watch
And
that?
you think
You're
it's
like,
going to
you're good.
happen. When they all
Yes.
show up at the house, you're like, uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. But like, that's what's the beauty of like your Borisov's character of like
Yes.
being like, I'm not touching you. I'm not I like, he's the most kind, thoughtful, really asking for like consent in things and just being like, I'm not trying to, I just need to stop you. Stop yelling at me. Stop hitting me. God, so good. That's another movie that I'm like, I really want to rewatch this movie. I would
Yeah.
love to like sit down and watch that again.
And
Yeah,
I love
it's fucking great.
Mikey Madison too, she starts the movie looking so glamorous and she's so done up. And then I love there's this literally this moment after her like shift where it cuts to her like in a train, no makeup. And I was like, God, this is what I love about Sean Baker is he kind of shows you like, here's the world you
Yeah.
think you know. And then here's like what that looks like on the way home. And
Uh-huh.
here's like the
Yeah.
next morning. And I
Yeah.
just I don't know if I'm like a voyeur, but I've always been so fascinated. Like, what does that person's life look like when I can't see them? And Sean Baker gives you that lens into like these like worlds that feel like I can't really go there. And I know that, there's been some critique of him over the years of being like, exploitive of like, oh, look at these people in this bad situation and I'm going to make a movie about them. I've never felt that. I think it's worth saying that
Yeah.
that is a criticism that I've seen before. But
Yeah.
I just love the lens through which he like views really ordinary people that you wouldn't think normally would be the protagonist of a movie and goes, this is about them. And I don't know. I love it. And
Yeah.
it
It's like
feels
he's not many people are trying to like do accurate stories or more accurate or like kind of informed stories about sex workers about
yes.
it's like that. I think you as a result you get movies like Pretty Woman for most of our lives growing up, and that's just kind of
Right.
what. And then it's like, but no, I think between Tangerine and to a lot of extent Red Rocket, and God, Red Rocket's what that's a crazy movie. That's a crazy movie. Yeah, I just loved it. And I think it's widely known at this point that because of it's a DGA win, it's PGA win, it's like Critics' Choice win, which I don't really think matters too much, but that this movie is like a huge front runner for like winning Best Picture at this point. I think I think that's cool. I think it's
Yeah.
like a movie that's like funny, a movie that is like is very um yeah, that just yeah, it's like a small ensemble piece. It's like a real fucking dynamite performance from her. It feels like a movie that I'm like, this is a win from her, and it's not at all the same, but it's like a win from her is kind of reminds me of like Marissa Tomei and My Cousin Vinny
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Except that movie's like way goofier and way sillier than this. But it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool. I think this winning would be awesome
Yeah. I
if it won.
agree. And Avli, I would even say there is no torture in the movie. Like
No,
it's
no,
not
no.
like you feel like, is this movie going to go there? And then it's like, no, it really doesn't.
No, no, no.
She's
It's like
okay. And
because of everyone's expectations of you
yes,
watching something, and you will go in and you go, "Uh oh, is this what is going to happen?" And then it 100% doesn't. It just doesn't.
yes,
It's like every situation is handled where she is has absolutely the upper hand in every situation, and the men she's dealing with are fucking goons. They're like goofball goons. It's like it's emotionally devastating because of like
yes,
this like
yes,
dream and promise that she is like kind of latched onto, and how it's kind of like removed and pulled from under her at a certain point in the movie. But it's like
yeah,
it's not in that sense. There's no like there is no like sexual violence in this movie
Because I think
whatsoever.
you
Like,
see the
there's
trailer
just
and
not.
you know that she's like an escort and I
Yeah.
think I've seen some people be like,
No.
"Oh, I just can't. That seems it's going to go to some so really dark
No.
places." And I'm
No.
like, my pitch is actually it's really kind of sweet and fun and lovely. Yes, there's some emotional like there's some weight to it, but it actually really it's I would recommend people check it out even if they are like, "Oh, I don't know if I can handle it." It's not that kind of
No.
dark where you're like it's so fucked up. It's not that. And I think
No.
that's really
No.
cool, you know.
Yeah, it's good. It's a really good movie. And then Kurt,
We got one more film on this
we
list.
got one more.
And I saw this with you. I think it was your second time seeing it.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely gobsmacked me. I know there's been some controversy we can talk about in the release of it. I have thoughts on it, but
I have
The
big thoughts
Brutalist,
on it. Yeah.
made by Barry Corbett, who is somehow our age. That's
Brady.
depressing. I
Brady.
keep thinking about that. I'm
Brady.
like, God, Brady Corbett, Brady
You
Corbett, Barry
said
Corbett.
Barry, and I was like, Barry Jenkins?
Brady,
Made by Barry Jenkins Corbett.
Brady
Corbett.
Corbett. This is The Brutalist, starring Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones and Guy
Mm-hmm.
Pearce.
Oh, man.
This is, I think on its surface, it's a challenging proposition to go see it. It is 3 hours and 40 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to Anora, where people might go, "Oh, that seems way too heavy, too long." Seeing it with you, I went into this feeling like, "Oh, this is." I remember like going, "Okay, we gotta." I didn't even know if I was gonna see it, but then you invited me, and I was like, this is the impetus I need. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
sit there." And my pitch is that it does not feel
No,
like a burden to watch this movie. There's an
not at
intermission,
all.
the way it sets up into it, the way it segues. I felt like I was like at a night of theater where I like got a first act and I got my snacks and I love the intermission of it all. I think this movie is astounding. I think it's just one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen. I've seen it 3 times now. I just watched this one with
Mm-hmm.
Kim. Kim
Oh,
also
yeah.
loved it.
Yeah.
It speaks so much to me, and I think to anybody who's ever had the inkling or impetus to create something, to make something. It is about sort of the artist's journey. How do you preserve what you're trying
Mm-hmm.
to make? How do you fund what you're trying to make? What are you saying with what you make? It's got all these ideas that I just are to me so interesting. And it also just feels kind of like, I don't know, The Godfather Part 2 or something. It feels like this historical time travel machine where like few
Mm-hmm.
films I've felt as much as I really stepped into this world. I really am like, I'm just here. I'm in the 50s. I'm in the 60s. I'm in this space. It's so accessible and so engaging. And I think Adrian Brody is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, and this movie just hit me like an absolute ton of bricks, and I haven't
Oh,
stopped
yeah.
thinking about it. What do you think about The Brutalist?
It's one of those movies that we haven't had a movie like this in a very long time. Uh, I know a lot of people throw out There Will Be Blood or The Master or like, The Godfather, big, and I maybe that is like derivative to try to boil it down to other great period filmmakers who do long, big epics. But I think like there's just so much that's so impressive about this movie. Um, I've also seen this movie 3 times. I don't think I have like written about it yet on Letterboxd, just because like it is a movie that every time I see it, my like thoughts and feelings around it continue to like swirl and stir,
Mm-hmm.
and not in like there are parts of the movie that don't like it's not to say that like they don't work for me, but they like make me feel odd in a way that I like still can't really put my finger on it, in a
Yep,
way
same.
that like it's like about kind of the pacing and the unraveling of this that is so fascinating. Obviously it's two-parter, in a sense that there's a intermission and then there's a second part after the intermission. I know a lot of people, it seems to be that there's a lot of people who feel very differently about the first part than the second part, and like the first part more than the second part, to which I go, I think what happens in the second part and how the movie kind of folds in on itself in the second part is similarly with Anora the point of the movie.
That
And
was my
I
takeaway when I've heard
it's
people
kind of
say
the point
that.
of the movie.
I'm like there is no movie with the first part is not a full movie. Like it's weird. We're
Yeah.
like I like the first half and I'm like The first half is just the setup. So I felt a
And
little
it's
crazy hearing people
yes.
say the second act's not any good. And I'm like,
No.
what?
Similar to Anora and this idea of like embracing the American dream and like coming from being a Holocaust survivor and being in the camps and the moving to the United States and kind of like the promise of like renewal and then the immediate feeling of like it all happening again and like being and not being welcomed and being like what our country has how our country has like been responsible for the state of like so much of the world because of our like really poisonous relationship to art and commerce and patronage versus like creativity and like I read a lot of stuff about how like Brady Corbet has talked about how the movie is like also about filmmaking. It's like about being a filmmaker and being like, I'm a filmmaker who has an idea for a project, an idea of how thing needs to make. And I know that I'm the only one who needs to execute it. And I believe in Final Cut. And then you have producers and people who give money and make it happen, want to fucking get their shit into it all the time and want to own the art and own the artist and all. And it's like, there's just so much stuff in the movie to like
Yeah.
think about and unpack. And
And
also,
for
I know,
me, like in the chat, Kaylee said, I don't think it sticks a landing, which super valid, but didn't feel that way.
okay.
I actually feel the complete opposite in that all of that hit me in the last moment. Like the movie ended and like you said, I couldn't quite put it into words. There's a lot to unpack, but it was that last moment as the credits rolled that I was
Oh,
like,
man.
oh my God. So it's like, again, if it doesn't work for people, I totally respect that. But I
I
actually
do
want
think
to,
the more
I
and more
want
I watch it,
to,
I think the end is like I'm like, oh my god, I think this is like maybe the best ending this movie could have.
I agree. I mean, to me, it feels the one thing I will say that Kim
Spoiler
was
territory.
confused
We're gonna
by.
talk about the epilogue. Spoiler territory. We're talking about the epilogue. We gotta talk about the epilogue. We gotta. Spoilers. Turn
I
off for
do
5 minutes.
the one thing if I could change one thing, I think the using the same actress to play the granddaughter,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Zophia's. That is the
Zophia's.
that was like Kim for a second was like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, I know it's a little
Sure.
confusing, but everything else about it, there's nothing about it where so like I just want to be one of the people who publicly says, actually, no, I think the ending is perfect. And it actually is why I think the movie was so powerful for me. Because I've seen a lot of
Yes.
people say the movie's great, the ending is not good. Again, super valid reading. I actually
Yeah.
feel kind of the opposite in many ways. But yeah,
I
let's talk about the
I
epilogue a little bit.
I think there's a lot of like keys into how the movie is structured. The movie starts with Zofia. You see her in Russia, maybe being detained by Germans before TBD on like where exactly that is in the beginning of the movie, where it's like, tell us your story, tell us about your family. And then she like and the movie like starts with kind of the bookend of her and it ends with the
With her.
bookend of her. And not to say, and I think that the idea that she expresses of it's not about the journey, it's about the destination, which I think is, very, I think it's a very complicated thing, especially in a lot of the ways the movie deals with Israel and a lot of
Yeah.
the ways the movie is like, I think purposefully, like, I think people feel like this movie has a like, I think a pro Zionism read on this movie is like is wrong. I think it's just a wrong reading just because I think the whole thing about the movie is a lot of like, I think I think the movie has a lot of opinions on the way like the United States treated certain people, treated immigrants, coming survivors and victims of the Holocaust, and what kind of drove people to the colonized Israel state. I think is like a huge part of like something this movie's talking about. I think a lot of the stuff at the end and how he as the artist is not speaking for himself at the end is like a huge clue into all of this, that it's like she is speaking for him and she is kind of like interpreting his work, which I think like the way that the movie goes, like, yes, there are like representations of like the camps and all those things. I think that's like legit, but I think there is something to the way that the movie ends, and she kind of takes something he said to her and says it. And especially when it's like, it's not about the journey, it's best about the destination. When we spent the last 3.5 hours watching this person's journey, and so clearly the journey was a huge, important, influential part of this guy's life, I do think, Kaylee, that the ending is ironic. I think there is like an irony in the ending of watching an artist's work, and after an artist put their work out there, how I think there's a lot of commentary on how it can be viewed, and how someone can just be like, this is my thought, this is what I think it means, and this is what it means. And it's like, the guy's not even saying himself what it means. You're doing it. I think the credit rolling song, the one for them, one for me, is like, oh my, like the 70s disco of it. I'm like, this is, I think there's like a lot more irony in like a painful way in the end. And how, Zofia and her husband they were like they were the people who were like, we are going to move to Israel at one point, and he and Erzsébet stayed, and we're like, no, this is where why are we not? There's like a line where he says like, are we not Jewish because like we don't want to go to Israel? And it's like, I think that's very important to think about, what his feelings on the whole thing. And then, but at the end, how she kind of like takes it and makes it about what her viewpoint was, which we know at one point in the movie. So to me, I think the movie is actually like super profound in terms of, and it's always the like art interpretation of art, how it's like at a certain point you do the thing and it just be it whatever your intention was, it's going to become someone else's intention, and they're going to take it in another way, which I think is like ironic.
And I found so beautifully put. And I also just found the process of something that really resonated with me on a third watch with Kim, of just this need for people to see how Guy Pearce's character in particular, right? He comes in, he sees so much potential. He sees this gift. There's this envy, this jealousy, this longing for, I wish I had it. I wish I, like there's this great scene where he's like, I find you so intellectually stimulating, right? He wants what he can have, but
intellectually stimulating.
Only if he can control it. And only the moment things don't go his way, he becomes this cruel. And that in particular, he
is so good.
He's so good.
And listen, I think Kieran Culkin's great in A Real Pain. I think he's fantastic. I do think it is a fucking travesty that because of precursors and how this season has gone, that like Guy Pearce is not like a front runner for this award based on what he's doing. It's like, he is so evil. And it's like, I think I saw it the third time I saw it with Joe Walker and Tracy. And that's when Lauren went and saw it. And, Joe was kind of like, oh man, it's like when he commits the acts he does in the end of the second part of the movie, it becomes like, it's kind of like takes away how funny he is in the first part. And I'm like, I think like, but that's the thing, right? Is like it's like people that evil are charming and are funny. And I think the fact that the movie shows you from the first moment you meet him exactly who this guy is.
Who he is. Yep.
You see him fucking bust in that house and he fucking is a terror. And then throughout, you kind of go like, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I did that. I didn't mean to do that. And like, you kind of like grow to trust him. And you're like, nope, we've known who this guy is from the second we saw this guy. And I think that's like another brilliant.
I've had this thought just a lot. In recent parts of my life, of just like, when people show you who they are, believe them, kind of has been a recurring theme in my life. And
Mason, we still are talking about the Brutalist, but I think we're kind of off the end at this point. We're just kind of generally talking about it. Okay.
But I really, I love that you said that. It's like, yeah, he shows exactly who he is. You spend the whole movie thinking like, no, he's different. And I think I can work within this. And like, yes, we know that he's got some bad, but I can build what I want to. I can take those resources because he believes in me, and I know he's a bad person, but he believes in me enough that I'll be able to. And then you're like, nope.
We know.
In the end, those people will still take, and they will still take. And they really want to control you, and they want to have what you, and like that just all of that. And and that could apply to yes, being making a film and being a director and producer, it can apply to any relationship where you are like,
Mm-hmm.
I am the artist, but I need resources. I can't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily make this. It
Yeah,
just, that's just such a resonant idea for
it is
me.
a movie for artists,
Yes.
which I think is cool. I think and what did you think of Felicity Jones?
I, I thought she was
I
great.
liked her too. I liked her too. And I feel like a lot of people, I've seen the movie, we saw the movie with a few people on Neil, our buddy who we saw it with. He was like, I've got an allergy to her. I don't really like anything she does. And Lauren
Oh,
too was like, there's
I
nothing
love
really, she
her.
she doesn't really do anything for me. And I'm like, I thought she was great. I thought she was fantastic. I thought Joe Alwyn was great. I thought, who else was in this movie? Oh my God, Alessandro
Oh, as
Nivola
Attila,
as Attila,
that
his like cousin.
heartbreaking,
Oh my God, he
heartbreaking.
was
Oh, so
amazing.
good.
It's
Yeah.
just a really fucking good movie. It's a really fucking good
I'm also
movie.
like, I genuinely love Felicity Jones. I've loved her in
Yeah,
everything she's ever been in. So I'm like a sucker for her, but I thought she was great in this movie. That third
yeah.
act and where their relationship
Oh
goes and
man,
how that develops is gut wrenching and heartbreaking and
yeah.
beautiful. And
And
that,
made
that, that,
for.
that car ride home,
Oh yeah,
right? When he's like, they don't
yeah.
want us here. Oh, it's just,
He's amazing. I think back to the best actor conversation. I go, it's got to be him. To me, it's got to be him. He is so unbelievable in this movie. Listen, I think what Timothée does with Bob Dylan is cool, and I think he's good at it. And I think we can touch a little bit on the SAG conversation or the SAG win speech. Did you watch? You watch that?
yeah. He's like, I'm chasing
Yeah.
greatness.
And I'm like, he's like, I worked really hard on this movie. I'm like, of course, a lot of people work really hard. Oh, that's fine. No, understood. A lot of
Yeah.
people work really hard, and like, I just think like Adrian Brody is tapping into something so fucking raw and like, and it is playing such a like unbelievable arc and string of like human emotion and it's like so astounding and profound that what he's doing in this movie that
It
I'm
sounds
like,
cliche, but it is
oh,
the kind of performance that you watch. And I had a similar feeling almost 20 years ago when I first saw The Pianist, which, Polanski aside, he's, Adrian Brody is astounding in that movie. And it's a similar feeling where you go, this is why you want to become an actor. You
uh-huh.
watch a role like this and you go, could I ever make someone feel the way that like, it is that kind of performance where it doesn't feel indulgent, but it reminds me of like the great Philip Seymour Hoffman performances or something, where you're
Mm-hmm.
just like, this is what we're talking about. When you talk about
Mm-hmm.
acting, I don't even know how to explain what it is when it's good, but watch this. This is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just extraordinary,
Yeah.
extraordinary.
And and this movie was made for under $10 million. I
That
don't know what to tell you. That's like the
mind
coolest
boggling,
thing ever.
mind
you
boggling.
know,
How?
this movie has
In
a
our
scope.
screening, the DP was there. That was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it. Yeah,
And
that
this
was
movie
really
just has
cool.
like a scope and a that is like so impressive. Um, Obviously, I was like listening to a lot of interviews with Brady Corbet, and he talks about how like you know people are like, what would you do with more money? Like, do you wish you had like more money? And he's like, honestly, all I wish is it would be great to have like $2 more million because if I had like $2 million more, I could then add a couple extra days of shooting, which would be great. I could and then just like be able to pay people more than I was like able to pay people for like different things. But that's it.
Right.
Then he goes, and it's like I don't need this. It's not like, oh, this would be such a better movie if I had an extra $50 million. It's like no. And as someone who is, as people who live most of our lives learning how to stretch a dollar and produce things on budgets that may seem big but are actually quite small compared to how a lot of
Yeah.
things go, and realize truly what independent filmmaking and producing is. I like just fucking mad respect for how
Yeah.
this movie was made. And
I connect to that too, because a lot of the projects that we've done or made, yeah, my takeaway isn't, I wish we had $10 million. Whatever. It's like, I wish maybe we could have, another day to tech, or I wish I could have paid the artist a little
totally.
bit. Like that's the impetus, not like, cause it's like when you're kind of pressed up against a wall and you have to make choices, that is sometimes where the best creativity comes from.
Mhm.
I just watching this movie, I can't fathom how it was made for $10
Yeah.
million. I'd really like
And I got it,
nothing about it says, they cut some corners. It's like, I
totally.
don't see it.
And just to touch on the AI stuff,
Yeah.
let's be real. I fucking don't like. I think I talked about this on a maybe a stream or something semi recently, but it's just like I don't like generative AI. I don't plan on using it, and it's not something I think is good as a thing in our creative society. Um, I think uh, I I think how AI was utilized in this movie was frankly blown way out of proportion. I think obviously there is like some of the generative stuff regarding pictures of buildings that were in a background video in an epilogue that's essentially like set dressing.
Right.
Which were not like made. It's like I think they weren't like made by the production designer. It was like a contracted out, like someone just decided to. It's not like they went, oh, amazing, let's use this. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's
They didn't
I
hop in
think
mid journey and say,
no, and say
let's
let's
just
build some
build the
stuff. It was
whole.
like the contractor or
Yeah.
the production designer was like, I need to we need to like have some things that are in the background that'll show up in a video that's behind someone. And I think the
And you
people
go,
she contracted do it.
I wish that was like, let's hire an
I wish
artist to
that
draw it. And I
100%.
will
I
never
wish
not say that.
I wish somewhere down the line, the person who made that decision didn't make that decision. But I also go to kind of take that decision and blow it out to like discrediting every other fucking insanely creative and fiscally mind-blowing decision that was made in this movie is like totally unfair and kind of like get a life. I'm sorry. But it's like sorry. But
I think that the conversation around AI, it's important because this is happening so rapidly. So it is important these conversations. I'm of two mindsets, and like I'm not a fan. Not a fan is not even the right term. I really dislike on a deep, visceral, ethical level generative AI. I wish that we had a better word to talk about other post-production elements.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we've lumped a lot of things into the term AI.
All under the umbrella of AI, and you go, do you guys know how much stuff is AI that is like a lot of post-production programs?
Right. And it's like, when you open that sandbox, you go, okay, what is considered AI? That's why the word itself is almost, it has such a connotation of like AI bad. No argument for me. But like when I'm working in Premiere Pro and I use noise cancellation and it magically removes some of the street noise from outside, or when I'm doing like an auto color grade of just like, hey, let me see what like the algorithmic like suggestion is for like a basic color pass. Right. Like these are things that you would say, well, that's not it. And like, well, that is what somebody back in the day used to would have had to have to hire a colorist and and so I go
like Photoshop, the way Photoshop, like, oh, I need to get this thing out of the background. So I need to use the other background that exists to generate more of that background to get it out. And it's like, it is an actual like generative AI to get it, to generate more of the clouds we need or some shit like that. It's like,
so I wish we could have a better, and I don't know what the language would be, but a more nuanced conversation around like, this is theft. This is theft of taking people's ideas and just spitting them out.
100%. That's bad.
Versus these are post-production tools that get better at recognizing how to quickly solve problems that used to take a long time. Totally. And it's like, even the idea of like using an editing software, it's like, well, that used to be film that got put into a thing and you would cut and you would splice. And now it's all happening. An algorithm is dictating. So I just, it's frustrating because I feel like people go, oh, I heard AI. Oh, well, that movie. And I'm like, well, what do we mean?
And the way people talk about Adrian Brody's performance, like that's an AI performance. It's like, no, it fucking isn't.
Right.
That's the craziest thing anyone could ever say. It's like, and if you go, basically what they were using to like adjust some vowel sounds when he was speaking Hungarian in some of the voiceover clips. It's like you go, the program that they use to kind of like maybe auto adjust some of those things, people are acting like, oh, he should have done that. he should have done that himself. Maybe if he could have done that himself. And it's just kind of like, what about auto-tune? What about
Yeah.
auto-tune for every fucking, it's like,
Yeah.
guys, we make musicals and there are some albums. I guarantee you that there are vocals in most of the albums we make where certain little notes are tweaked just a little bit. That's just what it
Even
is. That's what
even
happens.
even when it's not like oh, you were flat, it's even like, oh, I'm just going to bump this a hair up because the harmony on, like, every aspect of post-production is being touched by algorithmic computer generated things. And that
And
is a
then
reality of technology. And so I go, we need to have these things, talk about these things. And that's different than like,
yes,
give me like a baby walking through the street, with
yeah,
balloons
yeah,
and like make it riding a cat. It's like, okay, that's a different thing that we're talking
yeah. That's
about.
like just lazy, bad looking bullshit. It's like we're
Yeah.
not talking about the fucking opening credits of Secret Wars, which
Secret
looked
Wars, right?
bad, and looked like shit. But it's like, and then you go like, and then I think the notion that like someone's doing like specifically with the like maybe some of the renderings of the buildings or something where it's just like, I agree. I go, there was an artist who could have just done that.
Yeah.
But I go, and similar like with the vocal like a lot of the post-production processes. It's like the notion that, oh, if we didn't do this, that could have been someone's job. It's like, no, it would have just been the same person doing it and needing to
Right.
spend hours and hours going in individually to adjust. It's like you go, I think
Yeah.
this idea, I think there's not a good distinction right now. It's a hot button topic.
I
I
think
think
a lot of those, I would call them almost AI tools, have been implemented and used for many, 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 many
Mhm.
years with CG and post-production. We haven't been talking about them. And so I just think we're going to have to quickly develop a better framework for discussing this so that we can call out things and be like, nah, no, 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 no. We're not like we need to be able to have the
Yeah.
language to be able to identify that. I'm not sitting here being like, it's all fine. It's all good.
No.
But like, there's a level of nuance, which is hard to pin down. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
so for
All
that,
that
I
being
kind of
said,
go, right. Like, don't throw out all the incredible creativity and art over these
yeah.
two things, which one of them in particular, I'm like, I wish you hadn't have done that. And the other one, I kind of go, whatever.
Okay.
Um,
It's like, yeah, I didn't fucking watch the movie and go, oh, you know what? Oh, wow. Okay. I hear it. It's like, I frankly didn't. And I
yeah.
frankly don't think anyone else would have if
Yeah.
there hadn't been a leaked article from Fox Searchlight. Let's be honest. Fox Searchlight leaked this article in order to bring down Adrian Brody to bring up Timothée. It's a classic Oscar smear campaign. We've seen it for years.
Classic.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. At the end of the day, I don't think any of that stuff. The long and short of it is just like, based on what I know, there's one element of it that I'm like, I wish you didn't. I wish you just got someone to do this at some point down the line earlier. The other one, I go, that didn't seem like a big deal to me, and I think this is way blown out of proportion. In no way should like discredit the unbelievable work put
Yeah.
into this movie, and it's great, and it's yeah. So if you
That's
had
the
to rank,
Brutalist.
Kurt, if you had to rank them,
Oh
knowing you
man.
haven't seen 4, what's your number 10? And let's just maybe say Emilia Perez is everyone's number 10.
Is it? Movie Press is my number 10 for
Emilia
sure.
Perez is number 10.
Purely off of the clips that I've seen.
Huh?
I would probably put, only because of my sort of lack of interest in Dylan and biopics in general,
Sure.
I might put Complete Unknown at like a 9.
I think I agree with you there. I
This
know.
is not because I think it's a bad movie. These are great movies,
Yeah,
right?
I'm looking.
I'll
I'm
probably
like,
put
all right.
Wicked around a 7, based off of this, just what I know about the kind of movies I
Yeah.
vibe with. I have a feeling I'm really going to love I'm Still Here. I'm
Of
excited
course.
to see Nickel Boys, the artistry of that. So those aside, then if I have to get into ranking the ones I've actually seen,
Yeah.
I'm torn. Like, my Conclave is great. I would probably put that like at a 5.
Mm-hmm.
My top 3 are Nora, Brutalist, and Substance. And Dune. Yeah, that's really hard.
I know.
Movies that left, in terms of a cinematic experience, where I walked out and went, I'm changed. For me, it's like Dune 2.
Write mine down. Okay. I'm going to do Emilia Perez at number 10. Duh. Bad. Um, bad, weird. I'm going to do A Complete Unknown at number 9. I'm going to put Wicked at number 8. No, I'm going to put Nickel Boys at number 8. I'm going to put Wicked at number 7. I'm going to put Conclave at number 6. I'm going to put I'm Still Here at number 5. And then I'm going to do The Substance at 4. And then what's next? Oh, yeah. And then Dune, Anora. No, Anora. No. Dune, Anora, The Brutalist. That's my list. I think that's my list.
My top 4 are the same rank. I go Substance, Dune, Anora, Brutalist. I'm the exact same ranking.
Yeah.
Exact same. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's where I'm at. I think that's where I'm at. I gotta fill out my fucking ballot for are you in any Oscar pools?
No, I'm not.
I mean, I think I got one with some friends. I gotta text them about that one. But yeah, but I don't know though. You know, the Oscars are a real coin flip this year. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening.
Quick question. I want to blow through just real fast. We don't have to go through all these, but in terms of like director, supporting actor, all that, are there any particular nominations that maybe were from films not even nominated that really stick out to you that you're like, love that, can't believe that?
I wish Sebastian Stan was nominated for A Different Man over The Apprentice. I think he was great in The Apprentice. But I just think that's the like flashier movie that people were like, "Ooh, we should nominate him for this." But I'm like, nah. I think we all can agree, Different Man is like that movie is my number 3 movie of the year. I fucking loved that movie, but obviously, Challengers. And I know you were a little different. You were a little more lukewarm on Challengers.
Yeah. Listen, I thought Challengers was a blast. Like, I thought it was pulpy and fun and like sexy and like just, man, the tennis match, just one of the best things I've ever seen put in a movie. Just the way it was shot. Yeah. But I kind of came out of Challengers being like, fun, nice, like cool.
Yeah.
And then I saw people being like, best movie I've ever seen, and like started talking about like the depth and the layers, and I was like, I don't know, seems like they really like tennis, but she liked it more. I actually felt like Luca was like working in a pretty, like, I feel like he was having fun with this movie. Totally. And I had fun with it, but then people were like, this is the most important movie of the year. And then I was kind of like, it was like this weird, like people were telling me I needed to take it more seriously than I felt like it was.
Yeah.
But it didn't, but it doesn't mean I didn't like it. I kind of was just like, what a vibe, man. So I had nothing bad to say about it.
That's not necessarily, it's like my love of it doesn't come from like, we all need to take this movie seriously. Yeah. I think like, to me, it's like, it is the movie that made me feel the most. I felt the most something when that movie ended. I was like, I feel the most fucking energized. I feel like this movie is doing the best in terms of like utilizing all of its time, its runtime. The idea that the fact that movie kind of like climaxed literally right until the final moments, was amazing. Yeah. The fucking score was amazing. It's just Score's like great. I was so fucking jazzed watching that movie. I also just think the three of them are unbelievable. It's just kind of the perfect example for me of like less is more. Yeah. Of like, this is a movie that is not trying to do too much, that is very singularly focused on being like, it's a movie about sex and power and tennis. And it's literally about tennis, and it's also formatted like a tennis match, and the way we're telling the story is like a tennis match, and the way that you like their story volleying back and forth is also like a tennis match. It's very gay and fun and sexy and hot, and everyone in it is so fucking good. It's like Josh O'Connor, I'm like, this is one of the coolest performances anyone could give.
Yeah, and I really just, for me, what really resonated though was just the filmmaking. I mean, like, we got to the tennis match and I was like, this is
it, baby.
The coolest way one could ever shoot this scene. And I was like, man, like, way to just fire on all cylinders. And I remain so impressed with just Luca Guadagnino as a director, because I'm always like, what a guy. I have no idea what he's going to do next. I cannot pin down a movie that he does. I'm like, the fact that he put out both Queer and this year recently rewatched Suspiria, and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, this guy made Come By Your Name. Like, I
You've
I
seen Bones
feel
and
like
All, right?
Bones and All's great.
Whew, God, that
I
movie
feel like
fucking rocked my ass.
he can like rewrite his cinematic language depending on the movie. And it's
Yeah.
like I watch his movies and I go, I couldn't tell you this was a movie he directed. And I think that's such a compliment. And
Hmm.
Challengers
Hmm.
feels like so specific to what that story is. It's not like
Yeah.
my movie that I feel like was completely overlooked and ignored that I felt that way coming out of was Fury Road. Not Fury Road,
I'm
sorry. Not Fury
Furiosa.
Road. Furiosa.
That is a bummer. That is a bummer.
I love that
That
movie.
movie.
I thought it was kinetic. I thought it was electric.
Yeah,
I thought
that
it
movie's in
took
my
its
top
time.
10 too.
I love that it didn't try to reinvent. It didn't try to redo Mad Max. It really was its own thing. It really found its own pace, its own rhythm, its own energy.
Totally.
I thought
It
it
was
was
like a more of
extraordinary.
a it was like a multi-generational epic and not
Yes.
like a chase movie, which is what Fury Road is. Fury Road
Yes.
is one
And
long chase movie, and this movie is like Lawrence of Arabia, but a revenge
yeah.
movie. It's like a
Yeah.
long it's yeah. Yeah,
And
God,
then
Furious.
the other one that I really was kind of disappointed to see just kind of really be left out of the conversation is I saw the TV Glow.
Yeah.
It's a weird movie. I'm a huge fan of the last movie that Jane Sjoberg made. Is it Sjoberg? Sjoberg?
We're all World's Fair.
Yeah, we're all going to the World's Fair. I love the sandbox that's being played in at this kind of liminal space, dreamlike thing.
Yes.
I saw TV Glow gave me such a visceral reaction. It's a weird movie. I'm still a little confused by it, but it made me feel like I was high and dreaming. And I
Yeah.
just love that. I love that a movie that I'm just sitting there completely like sober with my popcorn being like, whoa. I loved that. It gave me such a sensation viscerally.
Fully
I thought it
agree.
was a really beautiful and like deeply felt movie. So that was one that I
Mhm.
really loved that I was kind of bummed to see just sort of I mean, it did well. I think a lot of people liked it, but
Yeah.
I was hoping it'd be more in the mix.
Especially considering the Amelia Perez of it all.
Yes.
Um, um
I
Strange
think we were
Darling.
remiss without, I love Strange Darling. That was in my top 10.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah. The movie rocked.
Completely. I didn't expect it to get any kind of awards love, but I had a
Yeah.
great time with that
Yeah.
movie.
Strange Darling rocked.
Just ruled. We'd be remiss to not talk about Hundreds of Beavers, which I saw with you. You are you have converted
I'm
many
a
people to the cult.
You know,
um,
and I got my I don't know if I here I'll let me go get it. I'll show everyone. Hold on. The final Christmas gifts that showed up from Lauren. It was the woodblock
yes.
Blu-ray that with the and it's got like 10 hours of bonus features. It has
Oh
like
my God.
a side. They only made 750 of these. So this is number 102 of 750, which is pretty cool.
That's
Um
awesome.
yeah, it's like the burned wood. It's like what Meredith does with like
Yeah.
her like woodwork. But
It's
they have a version of the movie where you can watch the movie and side by side see all like the VFX breakdown of how they did everything, which I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
that's so
It's
cool.
great. Yeah, I'm really
Hundreds of
excited.
Beavers to me represents like the ultimate and like what is possible on your own in a way it seems I cannot believe somebody sat there and did all of that. But it is something that theoretically you could do. And that's what's
Yes.
magic about it is you're like,
Similarly on another end of the Brutalist, but like the independent filmmaking thing where I'm like, these guys just put together this fucking movie for like $100,000, you know, and spent years working on it. It's been running in theaters for the last year, doing like rep screenings in places like fucking nice.
made in Michigan, right?
Made in like Michigan and Wisconsin. Yeah.
It is a fully realized live action cartoon. Like it is that to the craziest degree you could possibly imagine. And you keep thinking they can't level it up anymore.
Oh, and they do it.
And they do, and they do.
It's the best.
Incredible.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's like
so good.
It's a movie where I'm like, I watch this and I go, because like the story of seeing that movie was like, I just a few people I know on Twitter were like posting about it. I was like, what is this? And I saw the poster, which was just like this guy getting chased by hundreds of beavers, and I was like, what is this poster? This looks fun. And it was like I noticed it was like playing near us, and so one day I was like, Lo, do you want to go see this movie? And she was like, I'm like, well, you want to go tonight and just see it? And she was like, yeah, sure. And we went, and I couldn't believe how good it was. Also, I just couldn't believe she saw it with me first, because usually I'm like, I probably would have taken me time number 5 or time number 6 to get her to see
Yeah,
it. But
yeah,
she went,
yeah.
and it blew my mind so much. I was just like, that is the most creative movie I've ever seen in my entire life.
And it really feels like, and I truly mean this, it feels like cut from the same cloth of like the kinds of projects that you guys make.
100%.
Like it
I
is
wish I
so
could make this movie.
homemade and tactile and goofy and absurd.
Yeah, it's
And you're
really
just,
good.
you're delighted by it. So it's great. I think
Yeah.
anybody who's a fan of like any of the projects that Joey from, or like this whole world,
Have you ever
I
seen
think this is the kind
the
of movie you'll
great
love.
the Great Race, which was like one of our first Tin Can sketches, where it's like
Yes.
we did a silent movie thing, and it was like back when we were like us as the Tin Can characters, and it's like I watched it, I was like, this is kind of what we're doing. Very Buster
Yes.
Keaton, very Looney Tunes.
Yes. Yeah.
But God, my God, it's good. It's great stuff.
Well, we've gone for a long time. We've talked about a lot. So I don't want to keep you too long. I just want to say, like, real fast, rapid fire round. I'll throw out the category. Tell me who you think should win and then will win.
Okay.
Here,
let me go back
let's
to
just
the
start.
Oscars.
Let's just start with animated feature. Who do you think will win? Who should win?
I think I have to still fill out my ballot. I think Flo will win, and I think Flo should win.
I think the same thing. I haven't seen The Wild Robot though. I have seen Wallace and Gromit. I've seen Wild Robot. I've seen Inside Out too.
I think it's between Wild Robot and Flo. I think I just have a feeling people are gonna be like, let's go with this like super cool independent movie that has like gotten a lot of love. But also The Wild Robot's like very beloved. So DVD, but that's my thought there.
Original screenplay. You got Anora, Brutalist, Real Pain, September 5th, Substance.
I would love it if either The Substance or a Real Pain one. I think Jesse Eisenberg has a real shot. Ooh, God, I don't know. I actually think Jesse Eisenberg is going to win.
Adapted, Complete Unknown, Conclave, Emilia Pérez, Nickel Boys, Sing Sing.
I think Conclave will win.
Yes,
and I think Sing Sing would be another fun win because that movie also rocked. We didn't really talk about that movie. That movie
Sing Sing is great,
amazing. So
he is so good in that movie too.
So good,
Coleman Domingo.
Yes.
Actress in a supporting role.
Who is it? I think Zoe Saldana is going to win, but I think Ariana Grande should win.
But I do think Ariana Grande will win. I think she'll win.
You think so?
I do think she'll win.
Interesting. That would be nuts because Zoe Saldana has won every precursor. It would be pretty crazy if Ariana Grande won. The other thing too is that like Variety was projecting that Isabella Rossellini would win. I was like, what? What are you talking about? She's great. She's amazing.
She's like in 2 scenes of that movie.
She's in about 5 minutes of that movie.
Yeah.
She maybe has under 20 lines in that whole movie.
Yeah. She's great in it, but yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Supporting role. I think Kieran Culkin's probably going to win.
Yeah, but I think Guy Pearce should win.
I think Guy Pearce, I do love Yura from Anora, but I think Guy Pearce is just extraordinary in that movie.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Actress in a leading role.
I think Demi Moore will win and should win. I love Mikey Madison. I think Mikey Madison is so fucking good in Anora. She's going to get nominated for something years from now, in my opinion.
I'm the same mind. Like, I love Anora. I think I'm like, she punched her ticket. I can't wait to see what she does. I think seeing somebody like Demi Moore would be cool.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be mad about a Cynthia Erivo win. I think she's great in that movie.
I wouldn't be mad. I think there's also a shot that Fernanda Torres could totally upset everyone because she has a lot of support behind her, which would also be wild. But yeah, to me, it's like the symbolism of like, I would love it if Demi Moore won. I think it's also would be so cool if she won for that movie.
For that movie, thematically. Yes. Yeah. Actor in a leading role. This one is kind of a toss-up. I would love to see Adrian Brody win. I don't know who the front runner is. After SAG, it's Timothy Chalamet. I don't know.
I think the problem is SAG voting or SAG awards the Oscar voting closed like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, you're right. You're
So I'm
right.
like, there's no way that like what happened on Sunday at the SAGs would indicate
Could impact it.
could
Yeah.
impact the voting. I also think that like because Adrian Brody has won most other big, this is the first award Timothy Chalamet won, and obviously the SAG branch is huge, but I don't think everyone, like most people in SAG, aren't in the Academy.
Right.
And I think the Academy, I think like the voting branch of SAG is like very young. A lot of people are in SAG. It's like a lot of young actors can be in SAG. Most of those people aren't in the Academy. The SAG Awards also just didn't show a lot of love for The Brutalist in general. Didn't get Best Cast. Adrian Bro or Guy Pearce wasn't nominated. Felicity Jones wasn't nominated. And you're like, which is crazy. But I also think that, because the Academy, it's a lot more international. It's expanded to a lot more international people now, that I think like The Brutalist is a movie that I think has more international appeal, has like a European sensibility and all these things. So I think it's his, and I think he should win.
Best director.
Um,
I'm leaning towards. I would love to see Brady Corbet win. I think it's going to be Sean Baker. What do you think?
I am in the same position. I think that Sean Baker will probably likely win because of the DGA things, and also it's like a career Oscar for a lot of things, which I think is cool. But yeah, it would be cool to see Brady Corbet. He worked his ass off.
And then last but not least, Best Picture. Similar kind of thing. My heart goes out to Brutalist. That's what I would be my
Same.
pick. Probably likely going to be Anora.
Yeah.
There might be some potential for an upset there.
Maybe Conclave. I think it's between Anora and Conclave. If Brutalist wins, I'll be deeply surprised in a good way. But I think Conclave is like, those are kind of the two front runners. And if like Anora picks up a lot of like editing, screenplay, director, I think it's like pretty locked. Conclave could upset some of those, but also it could just like be we're making sure Conclave is honored in some portions and then still go to Anora.
That's a good year for movies.
Great year for movies.
It was a really good year for movies.
Great year for movies. I like a lot of movies.
A wide range of kinds of movies nominated, and I honestly think that's like the most exciting thing when it's not just the same stock kind of thing. It's like we got horror, we got musical, we got indie, we got biopic, we got it all, and I think that's really cool.
It's good stuff. Kurt, love seeing movies with you. Love talking movies with you.
Thank you for doing this again. We'll be back next year with more Oscar talk. So until then, go check out the Tin Can Bros newest show, Gross Profits. It's in LA. It's coming to
next weekend.
Australia.
We got shows next weekend,
March
the 7th and 8th in Los Angeles previews, and then Australia at the end of March. Go to tincanbros.com/tickets. You'll find all the info. We're going to be in Melbourne and Sydney. It's going to be great.
Joey, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Bye, Kurt.